No, that's Rachel. Hey, Rachel, just sit right there. Because there's Tyler, there's Grant, there's an empty one. Just sit there. Shh. All right, senators, please find your seats. Quickly, please. I hereby call to order the 17th meeting of the 62nd session on January 22nd at 6:30 p.m. With that, before we get into anything, we do have a couple individuals to swear in. That would be you, John, and then Senator Zaid, sorry if I mispronounced that, and Senator Perkins. If I can get you to come up to the podium, please. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Was that? I was leaning too far away. Got it. Gabe, you ready? I hereby swear that I will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University. Act in accordance with the Student Government Association Constitution. And fulfill all duties and responsibilities. Required of the office of.
Fine Arts Senator.
At-large Senator. Underserved Senator.
I will. To the best of my ability. Preserve, protect, and defend. The Constitution of the Student Government Association. Of Wichita State University. Congratulations. Don't have to shake my hand. With that, we'll move into Section 3, roll call. When I call your name, please answer with either present or here. Senator Bradley. Senator Brown. Senator Castillo. Senator Cowden.
Here.
Senator Day.
Here.
Senator Ezell.
Here.
Senator Flores.
Here.
Senator Hopper. Senator James.
Here.
Senator Kata. Can they just excuse? Senator Kennedy.
Present.
Senator Khan.
Here.
Senator Majors.
Here.
Senator Miller. Senator Morgan.
Here.
Senator Mounts.
Present.
Senator Nazir.
Present.
Senator Perkins.
Here.
Senator Ritchie.
Here.
Senator Sanchez.
Here.
Senator Spencer.
Here.
Senator Taran,
Present.
Senator Tubak,
Here.
Senator Wang,
Here.
Senator Zacharias,
Here.
and Senator Zaid.
Here.
Did I say that right?
Ziad.
Ziad. So we have met quorum tonight with 20 total in attendance. Simple majority will be 11. 2/3 of present will be 14, and 2/3 majority will be 22. With that, we'll move into section 4, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to be noted for last meeting's minutes? I know it's been a little while. With that, minutes will be adopted as such. Moving into section 5, public forum. Public forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate. This is a time for the association to listen to what the community has to say, and to that we offer our undivided respect and attention. I would like to remind everyone that although we allow the speakers the privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the association or the university. Lastly, in the essence of time, we do limit speeches in public forum to a length of 3 minutes, unless the speaker has spoken to us about it ahead of time. That being said, is there anyone who would like to speak in public forum at this time? Seeing none, we'll move into section 6, officers' reports. Item A, President's report.
Hello, everyone. So welcome back. Happy first Senate meeting of the semester. So first thing, just a little bit of updates about some retreats. So we had a cabinet retreat where we created goals for this upcoming semester that we shared at the Senate retreat. All of those goals can be found on our Trello page, and then also the executive and legislative goals for this semester will be uploaded either on the website or Shocker Sync for the entire student body to access here shortly. So we will let you know whenever everyone will have access to that as well. Also, we had the Student Involvement Leaders Retreat where we created a list of issues and concerns on campus. And I can share that list with you all in hopes of possibly seeing legislation created to help address some of those issues and concerns. On Friday at 9:15 a.m. in the SGA office, President Golden will be coming to talk with us. I'm assuming just to catch up since we haven't had the opportunity to see him in a little bit, learn about the things that we're working on, the things that we've accomplished. So if you are available, please let me know. Once again, it's Friday at 9:15. There should be coffee there. So it's a great opportunity to interact with President Golden. So please let me know if you are able to make it. So task forces. Oh, crap. I left the paper over there. So these are 90-day task forces. Thank you, Gabe. And I am really needing individuals who would be willing to serve throughout the rest of the semester. Thank you. As there is a potential that these will last longer than this session. So if you are interested in serving in these on these task forces for the rest of the semester, please let me know. So they are finances, athletics, diversity, human resources, professional development, campus community and inclusion, foundation alumni affairs, military veterans first responders, engagement and regional prosperity, access to higher education, and new academic institutional partnerships. So I'm needing at least two people. Not at least, I need two people for each task force. So if you are interested, please let me know as soon as possible because I have to have these names turned in by February 1st. If you are interested in one of these, I can talk with you a little bit about it, and also I can create a list on our Facebook page too of all the different task forces that there are. Just so you all know, on Tuesday I will be having a meeting with the director of the YMCA and Rodney Clark about parking at the YMCA. So I will let you all know an update about that. I don't know if there's anything that they're looking into, maybe some different ideas for parking at the YMCA. So whatever is discussed at that meeting, I will give you all an update about. And then also, last thing I have is applications. So the student fees application deadline is Friday, January 31st. So all applications for student fees will be due Friday, January 31st at 5 p.m. We are still needing people for multiple different seats. We do have 2 interviews scheduled this upcoming week, though, so hopefully we can get those filled as well. Elections application is still open as well. We have 1 upcoming interview. We are still needing applications for that as well. So if you know of anybody who'd be interested in serving on Elections Commission, please encourage them to apply. And then the Senate application deadline is February 7th at 5 p.m. So just so you all are aware. So for Treasurer Osterman, she wrote, I hope you all had a wonderful break. I am currently attending a rally in Washington, D.C., and I apologize for not being able to be with you all tonight. At the Senate retreat, the Budget and Finance Committee outlined its goals for the spring semester. One of the primary goals was to change the process of student fees with the hope of establishing a contingency in the student fees budget. A contingency is essentially a cushion that helps to sustain the student fees fund in the event of a drop in enrollment or unforeseen expenses by departments. While many more conversations will need to be had before we solidify anything as an association, I wanted to inform the Senate and begin the conversation about that possibility. Thank you again for all the work that you do, and I am excited to see you all next week. And for Director of Public Relations, happy first meeting back, Senators. Over break, I have been working on some really exciting events coming up this semester, as well as putting together the information we gathered from the survey. The next SGA event coming up is tabling at Springfest. Springfest is next Tuesday from 5 to 7 at the Heskett Center. Please comment on the Facebook post I have made if you would like to help table. I will continue listing events on Google Sheets as a sign-up form for February, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks. And that is all I have.
Are there any questions for the president? Senator Sanchez.
Can you remind me if you said that the task forces were only limited to senators or any student? It can move forward any student's name.
So it wasn't specifically specified whether it was only within the association or students as a whole. I can follow up on that, but based off the wording in the original email, it seemed like President Golden would prefer individuals from the association. But if you know of somebody who might be willing to serve on one of these task forces, I can definitely double check. I just really think that the whole goal is to have student input on these. So,
Senator Nazir.
When you were discussing the parking at the Y and talking about those questions, were there certain questions that were brought up or questions that you had in mind that you wanted to discuss with them?
I don't have anything in particular. I really just wanted to, at least at first, understand how that decision was made, because every conversation that I had with anybody about parking at the YMCA was, oh, we're not sure yet, we haven't figured it out, we'll let you know, and I was never informed of a decision until I saw on Facebook from the Sunflower. So, just figuring out why that decision was made, and then seeing if there's anything that we can do to potentially have students park there, or at the very least have them create like some sort of press release to explain their side of like why we're only allowing community members park there. So
Any other questions for the president? Seeing none, thank you very much. With that, we'll move to item B, Vice President's report. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope classes are going well, even though it's been just a couple days for some of us. First day. So, President already covered a few of the events that both of us went to, so I won't talk about those. One of the ones that I went to over the break was the Sustainability Summit, which took place last Thursday, where faculty, staff, some students were there, myself, Maddie Laughlin, who's the president of the Green Group, a few others, where we sat down, we had discussions about what the university could or should be doing in regards to sustainable efforts, and how to improve what we're doing now, or at least market what we're doing or raise awareness therefore. Some of the ideas that came up were establishing a sustainability center where you would go for all of those programs. Maybe it hosts courses or just general education about, but the building itself would be sustainable and run off of sustainable energy. Green projects and education, etc., things like that. Once all the information is compiled digitally, they're going to send it out. So I'm on that emailing list, and as soon as I get it, I'm going to send it out to all of you. I'm also going to post it on Shocker Sync, so any student can come and grab it if they are interested in any of those fields or discussion items. As all of you know, we had our spring retreat. We're currently compiling the data that we had for our breakout sessions, but once that's done, we're also going to be sending that out to all of you and making it available for students to see what was going on. But I just wanted to make a couple comments about some of the great ideas that were being discussed, and I'm glad to see some people have come and talked to me. I've heard about other people being interested in moving forward with. Some of those items are like healthy food options around campus, either in the RSC, on campus, or nearby. Student fees advisory committee, things of these nature. So that was kind of the point of the spring retreat, to kind of hit the ground running this session. Well, not this session, but this semester. And I'm glad to see that we're already following up on some of those. I would say, please don't hesitate to come talk with me, your fellow senators, if you're interested with any of the initiatives that were outlined there, or if you have one that you're currently seeking and would like some assistance, or don't quite know where to go, or just would like to spread the word about it. Other than that, we had a couple things for the community garden. So we met with, I am forgetting her name, I think it's Kirsten Beal, or is it Kristen? Kristen Beal. To help us set up another part. So you already know that we're doing the community garden and things are underway for that, but another project that we're adding kind of into it, that we're having discussions with Emily Patterson, Kristen Beal, a few others, as we're talking about how can we bring student art into the community garden. So one of those, as you may or may not have seen already, are the power boxes that are painted. Or the steps over by Clinton. So doing a very similar project to that on the concrete retaining wall that is within the garden, and doing a mural on that is what we're looking at, but we're seeing what's available and what we may or may not move forward with in that fashion. Other than that, that's all I got. I stand for questions if there are any. Thank you. So with that, we'll move into Section 7, item Other Reports, Item A, Student Advocate.
Okay, so I figured for my report today that I would just go over, I was able to email everyone a copy of like a bulleted list that I was able to make out of my report from the last meeting of the semester. And so I basically just dedicated a committee I think makes sense, but to the issues that I brought up in my report. So, like, for example, starting with parking, that could be something that we work with the Safety and Student Services Committee, since they already have been working on a lot of things in that realm. But I've just listed things under each one that I specifically keep hearing through students' complaints and appeals and things like that. So I won't get into each issue, but I think that there's a lot to work on. So academics, I definitely want to start working with like grades and faculty staff conflicts and things like retaliation for complaints against faculty and things like that that are issues for students that I deal with in the appeals that we have to do when grades happen and go wrong. I also touched on international and DACA students to the DEI committee, that we could have further discussion there. I've met with financial aid this week to talk about, because I originally thought it was financial aid, but it's actually the office of the registrar that determines like residency and things like that that can affect international students and DACA students and other vulnerable populations that we can educate ourselves more about, and then in turn make it more or raise awareness for like resources that are available for students that may not have other resources. So things like that. And then I also listed OIEC concerns, which that can cover like not just discrimination, but also like sexual misconduct and things like more serious concerns that we report to OIEC, that I think that we could still do some like preventative things through DEI and the Safety and Student Services Committee, potentially. Things like discrimination against bias and for discrimination or bias against religion or race, things like that that are happening in kind of like our political climate that may be affecting students here and things like that, that I've personally worked with students that deal with this and have reported things that have happened to them. And then like, of course, just different things like for sexual misconduct, of course, like talking about rape culture or consent or reporting and how to protect yourself and things like that. So I have some ideas here. Hopefully, I figured that we could start with like a list, and then maybe after the next week or two in committees, I can come into the meetings and talk more about what we can do going forward. But I would like for the committee chairs or members of the committees or senators, really whoever, to contact me as well if there's something specific that you're interested in working with me on, because this is like an outline of what I'm going to be accomplishing this semester. And so the more help from you guys, the easier and the better, and then the more familiar everyone gets with like what the processes are for what we have, and that way SGA can do more specific initiatives and things like that. So that's my report. Besides that, just enjoying the first week of classes.
Are there any questions for the student advocate? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move into item B, academics.
Okay, hi everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Vanessa, the academic chairperson. The academic committee will meet regularly on Thursdays at 6 in the Mayfield room. I'm excited to say that our committee has already came up with some great ideas last week at the SGA retreat, and I'm ready to begin those this semester. Last Thursday, I attended the student leadership retreat, and I learned some valuable knowledge that I am excited to that I hope to get to share with you, and I'm excited to talk to you about. And that's pretty much it until our committee meeting tomorrow. The rest of my report I'll submit on Shocker Sync.
Any questions for the chair? Seeing none, thank you very much. That will move into item C, Safety and Student Services.
Hello. So it's been pretty slow just getting back into our normal things. Recently, I've just been catching up in my role for the Parking Appeals Committee on campus. That has been taking some of my time. As well as that, I went to the SI Leadership Retreat and prepared for the Senate Retreat that we had last Saturday. That's been mostly what I've been doing, along with just planning events for my committee. We won't have any events until February, it looks like, but we're mostly just looking into not only having our own events, but partnering with other organizations. That way we don't do basically the same thing as everyone else. Instead of doing an event that's similar to another organization's, instead we can join forces and just make a really good event for our students. And that is all.
Any questions for our chair? Senator Nazir.
What events do you have in February?
So we don't have any right now, but that's our tentative dates. What we're thinking of having is Coffee with a Cop, as well as partnering with Mu Delta Alpha and having a self-defense course.
Any other questions for our chair? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move into item D, Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion.
Alrighty, so just this last week, one of the things I was focusing on is working on the Black History Month celebration. This is what I brought up to my committee tonight, and so we discussed various ideas, kind of like what we want it to look like. So I know two of specifically the senators in my committee are going to be working on kind of creating like an agenda for kind of like what we did for the town hall, just kind of getting ideas out there and getting kind of like a list of what we want to do. On my end, I just reached out to Maggie Hull, I believe, yesterday, who's the RSO graduate assistant. So I got a list of different cultural student organizations, and we'll be reaching out tomorrow during my office hours and seeing if we could possibly partnership on doing a celebration for Black History Month, and see if there's anything else through the other events we're planning on this semester that we can reach out for. Also, we talked about the Inspire program today during the committee as well. And just for those of you who don't know what Inspire is, it's basically it's a program that DEI has been put on since it was created during Joseph Shepard's second administration. But essentially, the gist of it is we go out to schools, specifically within the Wichita area, and we reach out to underserved students to try to encourage them that, you know, if they're in like a bad situation, or if they don't think they can afford college, that there are other ways that they can attend a university, not just specifically WSU, but any university that they can, and it's just supposed to help empower those students to you know, finish through high school strong and end up going to a university to get a college education. So we are kind of looking at like what specifically we want to do, more reaching out not specifically towards USD 259 schools, but also like reaching out towards farther schools specifically. One thing that one of the senators in my committee brought up is reaching out to like El Dorado High School, where she attended. So that's something we're going to be focusing on. And then I will be also meeting with Gabe tomorrow to kind of like finalize that and see what our budget looks like and what we could do. And then the other thing is, on Inspire is just trying to get like an actual physical framework set out of like what we want it to look like. That way, other sessions that follow this one are not kind of like stuck dead in the water every time there's a new chair, because we're like, what is Inspire? What do we do? So that's the thing that like each committee has faced over the last 3 or 4 years, that it's been a thing. So that's something that I will be working on as well. Other than that, just meeting Gabe just for next week. I'm just reaching out to the student orgs and meeting with Gabe and kind of figure out like what we want to have this semester look like, and then I'm open for questions.
Are there any questions for the chair? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move into item E, Ways and Means.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roja Khan, and I'm the Ways and Means Chair. So over the break, I had the honor to basically attend the YMCA opening, or not opening night, but the cocktail party they had for they basically invited the president and vice president. Since the vice president couldn't attend, Vanessa Cowton and I went instead of his place, and we got a preview of the new Steve Clark YMCA, which is gorgeous, and I would recommend you all go and attend and basically utilize the sources. Few other things that I was working on before today's meeting that really took my time were the retreats, the SI retreat and the SGA retreat that many of you were at. And at the SGA retreat, my committee had the privilege to basically come up with our semester goals that we want to accomplish. So one of the things we talked about was the SRB process, which is Senator Review Board. And today, the president, Katrina Miller, and our advisor, Nancy, we basically met and had a discussion about it. And then today at committee meeting, I just basically brought those ideas to Ways and Means. That being said, hopefully soon, sometime in the future, you will be seeing a piece of legislation coming out of Ways and Means regarding that. So with that being said, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Are there any questions for the chair? Seeing none, thank you very much. With that, we'll move into section 8, appointments. Item A, SB-62-092. Appointing the position of the Chief of Operations. Yes. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
All right. So in regards to everything that I've written on the legislation, the only thing that I would like to add is Kathleen has already been extremely dedicated to this position. As soon as she found out that she was being put forward to the Senate, she immediately got a copy of Robert's Rules to start learning. So if that doesn't say anything about how passionate she is about this position and the association, I honestly don't know what will. So with that, I will take questions.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you. And seeing that the nominee is here, would the nominee wish to speak to this bill?
Hello. I was a senator once. All right. There's no light on. There's a light here? Sorry. All right. Okay. Good evening, shockers. I'm Kathleen Short, a junior seeking a degree in political science and another in strategic communications. I grew up in South Dakota. You will learn I'm fiercely proud of this. I'm a member of Tri Delta, the president of Focus, the feminist club on campus, and I'm already one of the faces of SGA. A photo of me as a senator has been on the association's website for about a year, so. I was the out-of-state senator from the 2018 election until December of 2018, when I left to work for Senator John Thune in the United States Senate. I believe my prior experience with legislation and my passion for the political field has prepared me well for the position of Chief of Operations. I have studied the Legislative Journal and Robert's Rules of Order, and I feel I have a grasp on both. I look forward to assisting senators and students with the legislative process, whether that be through events explaining Robert's Rules to writing legislation. I think the best way to serve students is through communication and open-door policies. I plan to implement both of these during my time as Chief of Operations. However, I will admit I have not ran over the open-door policy with my office mates, so it may involve a little bit of knocking. I look forward to helping the Senate and Cabinet put students first.
Would you like to take questions?
Yeah, sure.
Are there any questions for the nominee? Sorry, Senator Flores.
So have you been doing work already over break?
Yeah, I went to the student involvement leadership retreat with some of these folks, and I also went to the cabinet retreat, and I've been kind of reading through Robert's Rules slowly. I will say it's a little bit dense, but I've been, just slowly reading through the Legislative Journal and Robert's Rules and trying to, as I said, get a grasp on it.
Any other questions for the nominee? Senator Flores.
So you haven't been appointed, but since you did all that work, are you going to be have you gotten paid for all of that since other
That's not a question
positions?
for me, I'm going to be honest. But
You are correct. That's not a germane question.
it's what?
Not germane.
Yeah.
Asking about pay and whatnot. Are there any other questions for the nominee? Senator Khan.
Hello. So, for your internship, how long was it? Was it like a semester or a year long?
So it was a semester long. So this time last year I was working in the Senate. It was through the KU Political Science Internship Program. It was a good time. But it was just a semester.
Before we get to your follow-up, Senator Ezel.
Hi. So what characteristics do you think that you bring to this role that would help make SGA better?
Well, I like to think knowledge. Hopefully that will obviously grow. But I bring a certain passion for politics that I sometimes am embarrassed to admit. But I think that is a big part of being chief of operations, is just being able to understand what is going on in the political field, and since that's my end goal anyways, I think I've got a pretty firm grasp on that.
Senator Khan.
So, since you were doing the internship at this time last year, so you would have had last semester free. So my question would be, why didn't you join SGA then?
So I actually applied to be director of public relations when the position opened, and when they were interviewing me, they asked if I was interested in any of the other positions, and I was in my head I was chief of operations is pretty cool, but so I didn't get that, obviously, and it just didn't seem like a great use of my time when I only had so much for classes that were not major specific that I knew I would fail without extra time, and being the president of a club for the first time was definitely time consuming, but I think now I've got time, I have mental clarity, things like that. So
Senator Zacharias.
When reapplying for the coup position after it reopened, did you have any concerns that kept you from applying that you feel you might have issues with during your term?
Well, imposter syndrome gets us all. So that was a main thing. I was I'm not qualified for this, and then as I read through it, I'm as qualified as I can be at this point. So not necessarily. I think there's definitely going to be things that I'll be better at and things that I'm worse at, but since I haven't really done the role yet, I can't explicitly say this is what I'm going to be great at and this is what I'm going to be not so great at. So Sorry, that was like kind of a runaround question, but
Any other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, nominee may either stay or leave for debate. Yeah. Hearing from both the author and the nominee, we'll be moving into the debating period. Is there anyone wishing to debate on this item? Senator James, I saw you first.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking in favor of this nomination just because this person has already put in time and effort and they haven't even been appointed yet. Shows a lot of like dedication that is really something else. So I think that we should all vote in favor of this nomination just like I am.
Senator Ezel.
Well, for one, I would like to say that I'm going to vote in favor of this nominee, and I encourage everyone else to also. She's very qualified, and I've gotten to know her. I've met her with her being the president of Focus, and I've seen how passionate she is about students and other people.
Senator Lepetsky, do you still have one?
I was going to speak in favor of this nominee. Just qualifications, I think she is qualified for it, especially with the political science major and work she's done previously. I think it'll be very helpful in this role.
Senator Flores, do you still have one?
Yeah, I will be speaking in support. Kathleen Short is so incredibly competent and intelligent, specifically regarding the political field, and she already, I think, has gone above and beyond without knowing that she would be appointed, and has gone to different things and has done a lot of work, which she has no guarantee of being like compensated for, which I think speaks volumes to her dedication to students and to the association.
Senator Kirk, do you still have one?
Yes, I will be speaking in favor as well. Her qualifications and her passion just comes across with her, how she is speaking about what she's wanting to do. I highly encourage every single person in this room to speak in favor for her because I believe that is exactly what this Senate needs.
Senator Day.
I will be voting in favor of this nominee. I know Kathleen primarily through her work on a campaign to put stickers in campus bathrooms that would include resources related to sexual assault. And through that and other means, she has demonstrated to me that she has consistently shown great creativity and a passionate devotion to serving the students of Wichita State. She is also interested in and knowledgeable of governmental procedures, which will serve her well for this position. I highly encourage my fellow senators to also vote in favor of this nomination.
Senator Khan.
I know we've all said this, but I would just like to point out that I mean, from what I have seen of Kathleen, I met her at SI Leaders Retreat, and she was very passionate and positive, and, you know, she showed that she has the knowledge. And so, that being said, I will also be voting in favor, and I would encourage you all to do the same.
Senator James.
With the motion to pass by unanimous consent of the Senate.
Doesn't require a second. It just requires nobody to be in objection. So with that, are there any objections? Seeing none, SB-62-092 is adopted with unanimous consent of the Senate. That will move into item B, SB-62-093, appointing the position of engineering senator. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
Everything that I have to say about this nominee is within the bill, and then I'm sure that many of you already know the nominee. So with that, I will take questions.
Are there any questions for the author? Senator Nazir.
For some of us who are new to the session, can you explain a little bit about this nominee?
Like, as a person? Like, I guess what in particular would you like to know?
Just kind of going in depth about this this bill. And so, like, since some of us don't know this person, just kind of explaining what's written up.
Yeah, so Matt Madden was a previous senator who served at the beginning of this session, but then ended up resigning due to, personal reasons, and now felt like he had the ability to come back, and so he really put in a lot of effort when working with the Supreme Court, and so I really think that based off that effort that I saw within the Supreme Court legislation that he put forward, and all of the time and effort that he put into everything in regards to that, I think that he would make a great senator. Plus, he was elected, so it makes sense for him to come back and serve.
Any other questions for the author? Seeing none, and seeing as the nominee is here, does the nominee wish to speak to this bill?
Hello. Is it working now? Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt, and I am currently a senior studying computer science here. Last year in the 61st session, I served as the Chief of Operations, and then in the spring for a few months, I was able to serve as the Interim Vice President. And then at the at the beginning of the 62nd session, I rejoined SGA as a senator, but coming into the fall, I had some personal issues come up, and I had to address those issues, and I knew that when dealing with those, that I wasn't going to make the time commitment that I feel like a senator should be able to make, so I withdrew from Senate for those reasons, but now I've got those under control, and I feel like since I have the extra time, and since I was elected, I kind of feel like I have an obligation to the senator, or to the students who voted for me to be in Senate, to be their representative and to represent their interests. And also, I just, in my time in the 61st session, I really enjoyed helping students and working and being a part of SGA. SGA interests me not just because I'm a legislative nerd, but I also think that SGA is really cool in that it is this organization that has the unique ability to give students a voice in campus politics and to push forward initiatives that impact positively students' experience on campus. Even just sitting back there and listening to people give their reports, I was like, man, this is super cool. People are working on the community garden finally, and they're doing this and this, and I'm like, wow, this is great, and I really want to be a part of that. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. And so that's why I'm rejoining Senate, and specifically two things that I'm kind of wanting to focus on as a senator is, first of all, I want to try to address academic advising, because that's something that I've addressed as a sentiment, and I know that my constituents have spoken to me about how they have issues with the current state of the academic advising they're receiving. So I would love to see if we can't do anything to improve the quality of that. And then also in terms of looking at SGA's legislation, I'm sort of looking at SGA from the perspective of someone who's been in SGA and who's tried to work on SGA and make it better. But now I'm sort of starting to see that, oh, okay, I'm about to leave the university period, and so I won't have that opportunity after this semester. And so what are some things that I can do as a senator now to sort of ensure I guess, continuity and positive change that lasts past my session. And specifically, something that I'm wanting to focus on is like senator education and getting senators, like making sure that senators know how to write legislation, because when I was chief of operations, I was able to run workshops and help teach people how to write ledge, but I can't do that while I'm gone. So sort of the stuff that I'm thinking of and would like to start having discussions about is, what are things that we can do that promote that kind of education or other such changes after we're gone, so it's sort of to establish like a structure that gives SGA a foundation for success. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Are there any questions for the nominee? Senator Ezo.
Hi, I'm new this session, so I haven't gotten a chance to know you, but could you tell me any of the things that you've worked on last session?
Yeah, so last session, I'm sort of drawing a blank here, but I know off the top of my head, I did a couple of legislative changes, including this big journal review where we made a bunch of changes, as well as the changes to the chief of operations position to make it into the chief, to like add the government relations side of it that it currently has. But I think the thing that I'm proudest of as chief of operations is actually the legislative workshops that we ran, because we attempted those multiple times, and each time I felt like I got better and better at teaching senators and closer to something that I think is successful to educating senators and giving them the skills that they need to be successful in representing their own constituents in the ways that they feel passionate about.
Senator Nazir.
So, from your experiences in SGA, what are some of your strengths and weaknesses, and how do you plan on working on those for this session?
Yeah, so I would say my strengths would probably have to be my passion, which I hopefully conveyed some of that in my speech, because I just really care about everything that SGA does. But I also feel like, especially coming from a position in cabinet as chief of operations, I have a really solid foundation in the legislative journal and in Robert's rules, and frequently people last session were coming to me and asking me like, hey, where would I find this? Where would I find this? How would I do this if I wanted to make this change? I have a very good grasp of the journal, so that operational knowledge, to borrow the term, I think is going to be of great strength to me. And I think in terms of my weaknesses, I think I tend to be sometimes emotional in like my opinions about certain legislation, so I might look at something and see it only from my perspective and how I see this changes things, and then sort of be closed-minded to the changes that people are trying to make. So I think the solution to working on that weakness is to just be aware of that and be more open-minded and go to people and be like, okay, so I see that you wrote this, and this is kind of what I see when you write this, but like, what's your vision behind this change, so that I can understand and maybe we can talk things out.
Senator Webb.
So you've talked a lot about legislation and helping senators write legislation in the legislative journal and things like that. What issues specifically to the College of Engineering do you see as issues, and what are your kind of goals for tackling them this semester?
I would say I don't have like a comprehensive agenda of things for engineering, because for one thing, I have yet the opportunity to actually reach out to my constituents and see what they think, and I know that everybody in engineering has a unique experience, so I think that that would be important. But also because the big item that I would like to focus on is the academic advising, because I know at the very least in computer science it's not great. We have situations like in Banner, there are prereqs for courses that Banner doesn't represent, so it just lets you enroll in courses. Or I've had situations where students were recommended by their advisor, yes, your schedule is good, only to then get into, like, say, senior design or try to enroll in senior design, and the person at the front desk of advising is saying, oh, hey, well, actually, you were supposed to take this and this course, and students are like, well, I had an advising appointment each time, so why wasn't I told about this? Things like that I would like to focus on, that I don't think that those things are really legislative changes necessarily, unless you have like a resolution. I think those are more go out there and meet with people changes.
Any other questions for the nominee? Senator Zacharias.
So from hearing you speak and talking to you previously, I've noticed that you're very passionate in two areas. The internal part of SGA, which would be Ways and Means, and then that academics part, which would be the academic committee. So I was just wondering why you wanted to be appointed to the academics over Ways and Means.
I see. I don't remember addressing, well, honestly, I think either is fine because those fit both of my interests. I think I may have at one point expressed academics as my desired committee, but I don't actually remember that. So I think either is fine, but I would say that if I was to be appointed to academics, that would make sense for, because I think that the external work that we do is probably more important than the internal work. So I don't know, I think I'm impartial either way.
Any other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, the nominee may either stay or leave for debate. With that, we'll move into the debating period. Senator Mounts.
So I was lucky to serve in SGA last year when Matt was the chief of operations and the interim vice president. He excelled very well at both jobs, and if you ever needed a piece of legislation written, you could easily go to him and he could help you. I know I did that at least once or twice. And we had very many discussions over SGA and what we wanted to look like. And then I also had the privilege to serve with them on the, I forgot what we call it, but basically the get together that we worked on the Supreme Court. If you remember the legislation that we passed earlier, so that was kind of what came out of that. We met with the Supreme Court members just to kind of gauge a idea of what we wanted to do, and we got great work done there. Over the summer. So I would definitely be voting in favor, and I'm excited that Matt is willing to come back and serve on Senate.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Khan.
So when I joined SGA last session, the person who taught me how to write legislation was Matt, and he did a really good job at it because I became so passionate about what I did because I knew what I was doing. And now in this session, I just hope I can forward that all to you because of the person who taught me did an amazing job. Now, with that being said, having him back in Senate would be an honor for us to basically have that because he has already served in the past and he has done a good job. And so having someone like that who has previous knowledge and can help us grow as a Senate is needed. So with that being said, I will be voting in favor of Matt, and I encourage you all to do the same. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Zacharias.
So Matt was actually one of the few people who helped me learn how to write legislation as well. And I think it's important that we have people in our Senate who know what they're doing. Recently, and I think he would be great to teach everyone and help guide them. But recently, it seems like we're only getting some voices. So I would love having someone in our Senate who has experience to guide everyone else so that they feel comfortable asking those questions that they might not feel comfortable asking to the executive branch or to the advisors. So I think that it's really great that we have someone with experience coming back to our Senate.
Senator Tran.
Seeing that the nominee is very qualified, with a motion to pass with unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, SB-62-093 passes with unanimous consent of the Senate. with that, we'll move into item C, SB-62-094, appointing the position of commissions member. Does the Elections Commission. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
All right. Sorry. So Star is amazing. She is a founder of the Black Honor Society, works in housing and residence life, and has my trust to ensure a smooth, ethical, and equitable election process. I believe her skill set, her passion, her ideas would directly assist this election process that was approved this past semester. I am excited to see her work alongside the other commissioner and future commissioners throughout this process. And with that, I will take questions.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you. Seeing as the nominee is here, would the nominee like to speak to this bill? Come on up.
Hey guys, my name is Star Billingsley, and like you previously heard, I am super involved on campus. I am a resident assistant, a member of Phenomenal Women, the president of Black Academic Honor Society, and I'm also a career peer advisor. I am a pre-law social work major here on my second year, and I chose to apply for this position because I'm really interested in politics and government, being a pre-law major, so this seemed like the perfect opportunity to go ahead and get a few toes wet and everything like that. A lot of things that I want to bring to the table that are like a little new or whatever, is like I want to really push this message of like equity and making sure that like the students as a whole are like really informed on what's going on, because working in so many different roles, I interact with students on a daily, so I get really good reception of what students are like wanting from you all and from the university as a whole, and there is kind of like a misconception in terms of the information being presented to students. So I feel as though if those students are allowed to receive like, you know, information on candidates and everything's running smoothly, then they'll be better informed to make those decisions when they are voting. And with that, I am open to questions.
Any questions for our nominee, Senator Ezell?
Hi, Star. So, do you have any ideas as to like how to increase student voter turnout? Because I know that that's something that we've talked about and we've struggled with in the past.
In terms of voter turnout, honestly, that really relates back to that information being presented to them. Because I remember even like back my freshman year, and there were like elections going on, and like we're walking past in the RSC and we see a table, and I'm just like, oh hey, what's this? And like everybody's like in line, and nobody really knew what was going on, and so it kind of resulted in a lot of groupthink, and a lot of just voting on the basis of what your friends are voting on and everything like that. So definitely getting that information out to them, and accurate information in ways that are accessible to them, is definitely going to be the answer for that.
Senator Nazir.
So kind of going off of that, you were talking about how you were a freshman when this happened. As a freshman myself, how do you plan on kind of reaching out to that class? Because I know like there's so many new people and so many new events, and nothing's like the same as it was in high school. So do you have any plans on kind of reaching out to that crowd?
Yeah, one big thing that I know that a lot of freshmen like are receptive to, just like working in housing, I work in Chalker Hall, which is all freshmen right now, is definitely through like posters and through their RAs communicating with them. So if you guys or candidates who are prospective and wanting to run, I definitely recommend reaching out to housing. We approve posters like every Friday. So definitely trying to get that information out to them, share what you're about, and make sure that it's in an ethical manner, and you should be good.
Senator Kirk.
Yes, so to get to the younger crowd, we know how you're going to do that. How would you get to the older crowd, like 26 and up?
26 and up. Definitely advertising, not only within housing, but definitely in a diverse array of like buildings that we already have on campus. Definitely recommending for people who are wanting to run to go ahead and partner with different associations that are here on campus for older people who are attending university, and making sure that they're able to get that word out and be consistent with their approach and not just, favoriting one crowd just because they think that that's like what's the most receptive. So,
Are there any other questions for the nominee? Senator Kennedy.
Thinking about the students that may not come on campus and they really don't associate with other students and they're full-time workers, and they don't have time to come on campus, so how would you reach out to them?
social media. So yeah, that's a really big thing. I really want all candidates to really try to invest in that, so everybody is being able to be informed. So there's a lot of areas that need to all come together to make this work. So.
Any other questions for our nominee? Make sure I don't miss nobody. Seeing none, the nominee may either stay or leave for debate.
Okay.
With that, we'll move into debate on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Sanchez.
Yeah, so I personally have a strong connection with Star since her inception at the university, and it's been amazing to watch her grow, and I have like the utmost faith that she has a strong work ethic proven by her track record here on the university, and just this passion for student engagement. And so what other way can students get engaged with the university but by the election process?
Senator Mounts.
I would also like to speak in favor of the nominee. I know well because of her work with the Black Academic Honor Society and the great work she's done over there, but also just everything she's done for this campus, and just only a year and a half now going on into the later part of her second year. So I'm excited to see what she can bring to our Elections Commission, and I am excited to see the ideas she has for getting better voter turnout. And so that's something that an election commissioner should already be well planned, and have that idea well planned out. And that's definitely something she has.
Is there anyone else wishing to debate at this time? Senator Nazir.
With a motion, I move to pass by unanimous consent of the Senate.
Any objections? Seeing none, SB-62-094 passes with unanimous consent of the Senate. Moving to item D, SB-62-095, appointing the position of underserved senator. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
Okay. So Sahani is an extremely kind person who is passionate about addressing the needs and concerns of our underserved student population, which will make her a valuable asset to our governing body. And with that, I will take questions.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you. Seeing as the nominee is here, would you like to speak to this bill?
Hi. Firstly, I would like to say sorry because I'm kind of sick, so my voice is almost gone. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sahani Chiten. I grew up in Panama. Currently, I'm a sophomore majoring in political science and minor in communication. The reason why I chose to apply for the underserved position is because I've always wanted to be involved with the community, and firstly, the university and the students. Also, I joined SGA because particularly I just changed my major this semester to political science, and I'm liking it, and I think this would be giving the chance to know more about the students and also address the concerns and issues of the students. Aside of SGA, I'm currently involved in event planning organization and as well as a dance group. Also, this semester I'm planning to be the vice president of the WC Young Democrats.
Would you like to take questions? Senator Ezel, I saw you first.
Hi, so have there been any concerns that you've heard from students that you want to focus on when you get into SGA?
Yes, I think the major part is funding because I also been a part of the organizations, and a lot of times I met a lot of international students and they don't really want to talk about their fundings that they require for their activities to proceed. So I think that being one of the concerns. So like talk how students could get the fundings and proceed their organization and activities.
Was it Senator Nazir that had their hand up?
That was my question.
All right. Is there any other question for our nominee? Seeing none, nominee may either stay or leave for debate. Moving into the debating period, is there anyone wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Khan.
So when I was a freshman, I had the honor to be in a class with Sahani, and her and I grew pretty close in that class, and we learned a lot about each other. And knowing that she's so passionate about what she does, and she's super ethical, and having that type of person on our Senate is again needed. And so, as I will be voting in favor of Sahani, I would suggest you all do the same, because we need someone who is just humble and nice and awesome. So thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Perkins.
I'd like to speak in favor of this nominee. She's one of the most hardworking people that I've ever met. When she chooses to be involved in whatever activity that it is, she's completely dedicated to it, and she will devote as much time as needed, and she goes above and beyond in every organization that she's involved with. So I would highly recommend that everyone join me in voting for this nominee. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Tran.
Yes, with a motion to call the question.
So for those that don't know what that motion is, that is to close debate, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot my cheat sheet. So it's not debatable. To close debate. You remember the vote? I'm just not pulling up. I want to say it's 2/3, right?
Yeah, because you're taking away the rest of the
That's what I
speaking
thought.
time. Yeah.
So, with that, we would need a 2/3 vote in order to close debate. Since it is not debatable, we'll move directly into the voting period. All those in favor of limiting debate, please raise your hand and hold them high. Thank you. All opposed, same sign. So with that, 2/3 of present needed a vote of 15, and we have 19 total in favor, 0 against, and 14 abstentions. So the motion carries. Debate is now closed, and we will be moving into the voting period on the main item. Is everyone clear on what we are now voting on? With that, all those in favor, please raise your hand and hold them high. Thank you. All opposed, same sign. With that, SB-62-095 passes its 2/3 majority requirement, receiving 22 total in favor, 0 against, and 11 abstentions. Moving now into item E, SB-62-096, appointing the university committee member. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
So I had the pleasure of meeting with Heather right after the break. We were in contact about this committee for a little bit before the break, but Heather will serve as a wonderful advocate for the student body on this committee, as she has a deeper knowledge of the scholarship processes and needs of the student body from her current role working with the Office of Financial Aid. Not only this, but she is also very sweet and an understanding person, which will help her excel within this committee. And with that, I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, is the nominee here? I see you. Would you like to speak to this bill?
Good evening. My name is Heather Hill, and I have chosen to apply for the position due to my experience in the Office of Financial Aid. Before the holiday break, I actually was in a focus group, and I got to meet Senator Kennedy, and she really encouraged the returning adult students to apply for any seat or commission or chair. So with that, I decided that I would do that. Before I joined WSU 4 years ago, I was in the law field as a legal assistant, and I worked with organizations, the Wichita Legal Professionals, the Kansas Legal Professionals, and CALA, which is the Kansas Association of Legal Assistants, and I served on boards which also include the Scholarship Chair, Credentials, and Vice President Committee. I do work in the Office of Financial Aid, so I do have some experience there. I do work in the scholarships department. So I know guidelines of the foundations of what scholarships, if you receive a scholarship, what hours, how many hours you're supposed to have and whatnot. And I do deal with outside scholarships. I try to bring those to light on our website to give the students more opportunity to pay for college. So with that, I hope that I can answer any questions for you.
Any questions for the nominee? Senator Ezel.
Hi, could you speak about some problems that returning adult students have in regards to financial aid that aren't really talked about?
Yes. As a returning adult, I'm fortunate in the fact that since I work here, I do get credits paid for. But returning adults do have that problem with the FAFSA. They may have gone and had their bachelor's degree and they're coming back for a second bachelor's degree. They're not eligible for money. There's not many scholarships for returning adults. So we have to look towards our employers. We have to look towards our churches if we're volunteering in the church, and that's what we also encourage with traditional students. But we don't have a lot. We do have the OSHA program, but it's only the tuition. We don't have extra money for books. We don't have money for supplies. Online fees, we were discussing online fees. So that is something that I hope, we can go out and research more. Because that is part of my job, is we do go out and vet outside scholarships. And I would like to see more for returning adults.
Are there any other questions for our nominee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Nominee may either stay or leave for debate. With that, we'll move into the debating period. Is there anyone wishing to debate at this time? Senator Mounts.
I am definitely glad to see someone apply for this position who has good experience in the Office of Financial Aid, especially when it comes to dealing with scholarships. So I'm excited to see what she can do in her position. And with that, I move to pass by unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, SB-62-096 passes with unanimous consent of the Senate. Moving now into Section 9, Unfinished Business. Item A, the Association's Student Fees Budget Request. Gabe, I'm told you're going to speak on behalf of the treasurer who couldn't be here tonight.
Okay. I am also getting over being sick, so bear with me. I know I look so pretty, but I sound so deathly. So I'm going to read something that Colleen sent, and then we'll go over kind of budget, reasons behind those, numbers we came up with, decisions, kind of making sure everyone understands the process, and then I will turn it over to you all to debate amendments, whatever you all need to do. So I'm speaking as if I was Colleen, so bear with us. When I decided to go on this trip to Washington, D.C., I expected to have the budget finalized in the Senate. Given the importance of the decision of the budget, I wanted to write you today to explain the decision on how the line items were made. First, I wanted to emphasize to this body, like any other bill, anything including the amount in each line may be changed by the Senate. I look at the budget as I look at personal finances. You must put money where it is most important. In your personal finances, there is necessary and unnecessary expenses. In an office budget, the operating costs of the association are necessary first. This includes salaries, which have been approved by the Senate, and scholarships, which have also been approved by this body as well. Those expenses that the association takes into addition are the ones that are important, but not necessarily legislative. I would also ask the body to debate and consider which items are most important to your constituencies, and allocate money to the areas that your constituents need money allocated to. This is said to important to bear in mind that all of our funds as an association is derived from student fees. In an effort to put this into context for students or for Senate, I've made some basic calculations for that. Colleen will go into more specific details about this whole idea she has with student fees next week when she returns to the office. As our association budget is taken from student fees, I'd urge the Senate to consider long-term financial consequences of the budget we put forth, and to remember that each additional cost taken on by every department increases the overall cost on student fees. As Katrina, Gabriel, and I prepared the budget, we endeavored to report and account for expenses that had previously been taken out of the association reserves funds. Although this adds to the overall expense of the budget, it more accurately reflects the current state of the association's finances. The goal in preparing the budget was to serve as a model for student fees process. That is to project to the best of our ability the expenses for the year and to budget accordingly to that. As we did this, we found many of the budgets have been previously laid out were a little too high, and we were not spending the amount that we were budgeted for. So thank you for listening, and now I'm going to go into the specifics. Okay, so if you want to go to the salaries tab and then I'll kind of again give you a rundown and then explain some things from there. So when we look at our salaries tab, all this is currently right now all legislated by statute. So each of these scholarship or each of these salary areas, are all in order to prepare for the next session, as well as things that are already statutorily required for us to request. The main difference in this fund, if you all remember in the fall semester when we presented this for the first time, the increase in this area is a portion of the assistant director's salary that works with the student government. So my salary currently right now is taken out of the student involvement budget. My contract, however, stipulates that 40% of my time is dedicated to the student government. So the request is to provide equal that from the student government's budget, which is where the increase comes from this line item, which is an overall increase of $21,948. There was a decrease to this area as we made adjustments that were passed by the Senate in the fall. A lot of that came from the student positions that were adjusted in the most recent piece of legislation, the CARE Act and the Compensation Act as well. So the overall increase for this area, as I mentioned, is $21,948. A majority of that is all statutorily required, with the exception of the $24,500 that is the request for 40% of my salary. The next tab is our office management. We have an office, so we have to run that office. One of the things that we did in this area was to ensure that we were asking for money that was absolutely necessary for our office. If you can see in the bottom, if you scroll all the way down, you'll kind of see historical trends. So the first column is fiscal year 19, the second column is our current fiscal year, and then the next one is our request. As we kind of looked around into this budget, we looked at a 3-year basis and made cuts in there. So we took the budget, almost cut it in half into asking for $9,900 in order to maintain our office. It goes to everything: printing, computers, phones, everything we have in our space to maintain that office we have to pay for. And so we were able to go in there roughly 50% to cut from that area in order to best make decisions that were fiscally appropriate for that line. Some of those additional things included some other programming costs that we moved into our programming budget, which is why this number looks a little bit smaller now than it did before. But this number all equals to taking those programming dollars out. So this is the actual cost to maintain our office. The next one is our standing committees of the Senate, as well as other areas. So the programming and operations one. Sorry, Ridge, I'm sorry. I should have told you, my bad. So this fund holds all of the programming and operations that are non-office related, as well as non-student advocate election and locker related expenses. So in this fund, we hold our marketing budget, we hold our programming areas, and then the cost to live stream our Senate meetings are also included in here. So the overall increase in this fund is $1,450, asking for an overall $32,000 in that fund. Each of our Senate committees receive funding. There is an increase of $200 to the Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion Committee. There is an increase of $200 to the Safety and Student Services Committee. There's an increase of $300 to the Academic Standing Committee, an increase of $500 to the Ways and Means Committee, an increase of $900 to the Government Relations Committee, a decrease of $600 to the Senate Retreat, which is looked at the trend of spending in the Senate Retreat budget over the last 5 years. A third decrease, or the next decrease, was to the WSU Inspire program. Again, looking at a 5-year trend of since the program was first started, and more appropriately funding areas in that. The next decrease was $400 to the end of the year banquet, which again, looking over the past 5 years, we expended much less, and so we appropriately budgeted for that. The increase to this fund, if you look at the line that talks about lobbying efforts and travel, in the past, we always send the student body president to KBOR every month, and we have actually never budgeted for that. So this year we put it into the budget to cover those costs, as well as the cost for Higher Ed Day, and as well as the lobbying trip to DC that we take cabinet to. So each of those, cabinet and senators, in the next year. So each of those lobbying efforts kind of goes into the mission that we talked about in the fall semester, that your responsibility to students is not just here on campus, but requires you to engage at local, state, and national levels. So that is where we increased the funding to. We merged all three of those areas together and provided a good balance for us to be able to appropriately fund those areas. What's unknown of is costs always go up, so if for some reason we go over that, we're prepared to address some of those costs within our reserve areas. That is all in this fund. If you want to go to the locker. So the overall increase for this is to permanently pay our graduate assistant for the lockers, so Colin Munson, who works in our office. A year ago, under the 61st session, the position was authorized by the Senate after student fees, and the money to pay for that position was ultimately taken out of reserves for this year. So we are going in to ask for the permanent funding for that, which we cover for any graduate assistantship position on campus. We cover tuition, provide a stipend, and cover health insurance that is optional for the GA to take or not. So that is the overall increase for this area in the scholarship, or in the Shocker Support Locker Fund. The next one is elections. Majority of this is also statutorily required for the changes that were made to the elections compensation and composition that was passed in the fall. So we made adjustments to those to cover the cost of our salaries, and then looking at the other fees line, the programming to provide them the funds they need for marketing, the funds they need for events that they host, town halls, debates, et cetera, et cetera. We don't consider any of those costs within the association because the Elections Commission is independent, and so we provide them a budget independently from the association as well. So we merge it, and we don't merge it, we keep it separate so that they're able to spend it, so that there's no issues within sitting members to mess it up at all. Let me make sure there was nothing else she wanted to say. Okay, yeah, that is it. And then the next one is a student advocate. In this fund, we move some money around, so the number is increasing by $182. The reason why we're moving some things around is because we consider the student advocate an independent office of the association. We pay for their phone bill outside of our main office, so we put that money to pay for their phone and printing costs into their budget so that they can maintain that budget that's separate from the overall office. So that also includes the student advocate's salary, as well as programming dollars for the student advocate, and their phone bill, which is also included in there. And then the next one, student funding. The money you all give to student organizations and to individual students, we're asking for the same amount. The difference is that we're going in to ask for $3,000 for the summer funding once we get ready to start summer funding next summer. And then the next one is our scholarship. So that, before we go to the scholarship one, all of that is student fee money. So money that we are asking from the student fee committee. The next part of it, if you go to the scholarships, Ridja, this is where we're asking for EOF money, so the Educational Opportunity Fund dollars. We've broken down all of our scholarships, and best to meet the funding area in which EOF funds, we've moved all of our scholarships into this area. So the International Hardship Fund comes out of this. That is a direct transfer from the office that already maintained it, so it's not any new money for us. We are increasing our Dreamer Scholarship by $1,000, or asking for a $1,000 increase every year based off of recommendations since the scholarship started. We always have more people than we have money for, or we have less people and more money that we can't necessarily award. So we do want to go in for an increase to be able to provide some additional support to our Dreamer students. Our International Student Scholarship, we are reducing by $5,000. The only reason behind that is we've never spent $20,000 in the past 3 years to award all that. So again, being good stewards of dollars, we're going to decrease that fund and reallocate it to other scholarships. The Senate authorized the McKinney-Vento Scholarship Fund in the fall, so we are requesting $6,000 for that. For this current year, we are pulling that out of reserves. For the next year we award it, will be pulled out of EOF if it's authorized. And then the last thing in there is the Domestic Student Hardship Fund. One of the things that we talked about in the fall, if you remember, is that we plan on submitting legislation to the Senate to authorize the hardship fund for domestic students. We went ahead and requested the funding. If for some reason the Senate does not authorize that scholarship, we'll pull the funding out of student fees before they make that decision. So we plan on bringing that legislation to the floor within the next few weeks before student fees convenes to make decisions. So the overall request the association is asking for in student fee money is $311,408 in student fees for the association, as well as $44,500 in student fees from the EOF fund. There's something else. Hold on. So if you wanted to look at it percentage-wise, Bridget, if you go to the very first tab, the master overview. We are going in for a 19% increase to our overall budget. It looks dramatic when I say 102%. It is dramatic, but because that money has existed in other funds, it looks new to us, which is why the EOF fund does dramatically go up to 102%. But bear in mind that that's not necessarily new student fee money. That's just student fee money that we're taking on, and so it impacts our budget, so it inflates our number to make it a little bit bigger than what it actually is. In reality, the direct increase we're going in for is the domestic student hardship fund at $10,000, and then the increase to the Dreamer Scholarship and the McKinney-Vento. So the $17,000 of pure new money that we're asking for, the rest of it is being transferred into this to that fund. Does that make sense? So when it looks dramatic at 102%, I know that, but in reality, it's about a $17,000 increase because the rest of it's transferred in. With that, I will take any questions if you have them. And if you have questions about a specific area, please be specific with that as well.
Senator Webb.
I forgot to ask this earlier this week. Could you just quickly differentiate between where EOF money comes from and where student fees money comes from?
Yeah, so EOF is actually a part of the student fees process. It is just a separate line item. In our one of our statutes specifies what EOF is. It is purely scholarship money, or it is dollars that are helping to support mentorship programs, our cultural ambassadors. So it's a separate type of funding that has a lot more specific and honestly a lot more stringent requirements in order to actually ask for that money. So the majority of it is based off of scholarship support, mentoring support, and stipends to students, not actually stipends to any staff members, but it is a line item in the student fees package. So for those who serve on the committee, they'll review all EOF requests, and then we present it as a separate line item of student fees, but it's overall all of it student fee money.
Senator James.
Looking at the programming and operational funds, is there a reason why the Inspire funding is not like directly with DEI funding? Because I know DEI is the one that usually does the Inspire dinner.
Yeah, so when the program was first created, to my understanding of trying to read that information back then, it didn't necessarily belong to a committee at that point, so they had the money separated. Each session has done it very differently of how and who takes the lead on that. In this session, and in the previous session as well, it was their understanding that they wanted the diversity task force at that point, and now DEI at this point to plan it. We just keep it separate because it's a standalone program. Whether who leads it or not, we just keep that funding separate so that we know that in this case, $1,400 is dedicated to that program and not mixed in with DEI's budget. So that's the only reason why we keep it separate. Does that make sense? Okay.
Senator Day.
Is the Educational Opportunity Fund essentially guaranteed to fund the scholarships, or could they be cut despite being required by statutes?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Is the Educational Opportunity Fund essentially guaranteed to fund the scholarships, or could they be cut like in the regular student fees process?
So they're guaranteed through our language for us to request it every year. It is not necessarily guaranteed that the Student Fees Committee will award it to us. So if they decide, no, we don't want to give you the increase to Dreamers, if we decide that we still want to do it, then we can find money in our budget to cover that increase, especially the thing that happens if it's statutorily required the number we ask for, then we have to figure out a way to pay for it internally as an association, which is why none of our scholarships have a statutorial number, so that if that happens, we don't ever run into it. We just look at that number based off of what we've requested in the past. if the Senate at whatever point wants to require a number that we ask for, that's just my advice that I'd give at that point is keep in mind that if they don't approve it, then we still have to figure out a way to pay for it so that we don't violate our statutes.
Was that a hand? Senator Zacharias?
So if you want to move to salaries, there's a thing with all of the chair positions and the clerk of the Senate beside it, it says includes the transition pay. I was not aware that any of these positions got transition pay, and so I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Yeah. So each of our positions, and if I'm going to be honest, we might have copied and pasted all the chair pays, but all the other positions, the cabinet positions, the Speaker of the Senate were all built in with transition pay. If I'm being honest, I think we just copied and pasted by accident. I know none of the chair positions receive a transition pay because once your term is up, your term is up. But the other positions were all designed and written in there for transition pay. So that was just a typo for us, but thanks for catching that.
Before your follow-up, Senator Day.
Why is the Inspire program seeing a cut of about, I think, $700 or $800, something like that?
Yeah, so when we looked at, since the program was created back in the second term of Joseph Shepard to now, we never spent the money to the maximum. So if you can look in fiscal year 19, we budgeted $2,750. We took it down to $2,500. We've never traditionally spent all of that money, and if I'm being honest, sometimes the program doesn't happen, so we don't end up spending any of it at all. So when we look at the number, we try to look at a trend of what the 5 years data told us, with a little bit of leeway if for some reason they expand a little bit more. So that's the only reason why we made that decision, but it doesn't have to be the decision that we move forward with. If you want to bring it back to the $2,500, then we can go through that process as well. But that was just a reason that we made the decision to cut it down to the $1,400 was just based off of the years of that we've had the program and how much we actually spent versus how much we budgeted for it.
Senator Wang.
Since you're talking about the extra money that they are not spending, so what are we doing with the old rollover money currently? Because since we're doing the cut, it's for the future, it's not the current situation. So I want to know what's going on.
Hold on a second. Sorry. So the idea with our rollover money has been different year to year. Last year we did auxiliary funding where we provided additional support to organizations. This year, there hasn't been lots of conversation on what to do with it. I know that some of the things are already earmarked to be paid for, the McKinney-Vento scholarship, some additional things. What we try and do and what Colleen and I kind of talked about with leftover money or rollover money is to be able to provide a basis for the next session to say, the 60-second session said this, but we want this to become an effort that we want to work on. So the idea is that what's tough about this is that we set the budget for the next session, but the next session may come in and have lots of different ideas that we want to provide them additional funding that isn't earmarked for anything that then they can work through their Senate to get approved to additional costs. So for example, this year, this session was adamant about the DC trip, so we use rollover money in order to cover that. We use that money to cover our grad assistant for the year. So it just kind of depends and to leave a basis for the next session to be able to utilize those dollars on their platform goals, their ideas, new programs they want to develop without having to wait a year and not having any money to be able to pay for that. So it is up for this session to also decide, we want to spend that money during this year, and whatever is left over will be up to the next session to decide how they want to allocate it, unless for some reason student fees decides to take it. Because that's also reality. Our reserves can be swept by the student fees committee. Rarely have they done it, and all the time we have always given up a certain portion of our reserves in order to balance the budget a little bit more overall, but still giving some leeway for the next session to be able to decide, we have this brand new idea that we don't have money for, so we're going to tip into our reserves in order to pay for it.
Senator Zacharias, do you still have one?
So with everyone's salaries, back on salaries, with everyone's salaries, it says how many pay periods, like the student body president gets. Did they change the pay periods that chairs get? has that been expanded to include summer, or is that still just fall and spring session?
It did expand it to change in the legislation that ultimately passed. It did give it a pay period before the session gavelled in. So it was written, if I'm doing the math right, it's an 20-week pay period, or 20 pay period, to give it an additional pay period before we gavel back into session. So the chairs would theoretically start 2 weeks before the session started. And that number is included in there, sorry.
No, you good. Senator Majors.
So in reference to Inspire, once again, you mentioned that you analyzed 5-year trends for the Inspire program and came to the conclusion that $1,100 should be cut, but in that 5-year trend, each year, was there $1,100 remaining, or did it fluctuate?
It really fluctuated from year to year. When the program first started, they spent a lot more. When the program continued to go, it really did fluctuate from year to year. $1,100 was kind of our median between it all, of looking at what is it that they expended versus what was left over, and that became the kind of middle number of 3 years ago versus 5 years ago, and it really became the median idea of this was what would be potentially comfortable for it. So that's kind of how we looked at it, was looking at what they spent, what was budgeted for it, because the budget was also fluctuated from year to year, and then really looking at what was left over, and then determining the median between that.
Senator Day.
Would office expenses being cut so drastically result or cause a decrease in the effectiveness of the office in a significant way?
No, I think when we look at this, we put money in places, also for like a rainy day, right? If something happens, like half of our computers decide that this is it and they no longer want to work, we put money in there for that. So when we designed the office budget, we looked at, again, we looked at the office with a 3-year trend for us, and really looked at what was it that we spent, what was it that we needed to pay for versus what are things that may only come up if we actually need to. We decided, looking at the technology system, so line 22 on this budget, was where we put technology costs. So if for some reason the computers go out or we have to buy a new laptop or whatever, we have funding designated for that. We may never spend that $5,000, right? You may go a year and not spend your technology budget, but we have it just in case something happens, or if we need to make a repair, because we have to pay for repairs, we have to pay for technology upgrades, things like that. We provided some funding in order if something happens, so that really becomes the safety net of the office fund.
Senator Ritchie.
I'm back under salaries, and I really maybe should have done my homework on this, but looking at the new position, the Speaker of the Senate, how do you justify the $10,260 that's allocated to that position?
It was what was approved by the Senate in the fall. So all these numbers from the whole student salary line was all money that was approved by the Senate in the statute that was passed in the fall. So we have to ask for the money that you authorized.
Senator Webb.
Going back to the programming and operations, thank you, Senator Khan, for flipping back so often. Looking at the lobby efforts and travel, I may have missed this when you were first talking about it, but did you say that we have an obligation to lobby at the state and federal level, or is it just encouraged?
I think it's encouraged. I would strongly maybe use strong words and say strongly encourage that to be a thing. Each of the region institutions now will host their own higher ed day. Is that correct? I'm looking at you. At the state level, so each of them will host their own one. So when we send students to that, we pay for their travel and pay for their lodging. The K-Board travel, when we send the student body president to K-Board, we have to reimburse travel for that. And then the DC one, Super Admit is a brand new thing to us. We started that this past summer in hopes that we can continue to work on those things, because there still are very important things that affect higher education and students at the federal level, with the Higher Ed Reauthorization Act, financial aid, and through the Department of Education. So we earmark some of the funding in order to do that, not necessarily, again, as an obligation, but more as strongly encourage members to do from year to year as we go. But of course, ultimately, the decision is up to whether or not the group wants to go, or if they want to send it, if they want to expend that money or utilize it in a different way. The only difference I would say is obligation-wise is we have an obligation to reimburse the president when they go to KBOR because that's part of their requirements as being student body president.
Senator Zacharias.
So again, for programming and operations and lobby efforts and travel, why do we cover costs for food if we do not cover costs for food for individual and organizational funding?
Yeah. Best answer I'm going to give you. We don't have policies for reimbursing members of the association on things that they do on behalf of the association. So our base policy is that if you're acting on behalf of the association, working on behalf of the association, representing the association, that we're going to cover the cost for you to do that.
Senator James, do you still have a question? I thought I saw a hand over there. Senator Day.
Another question related to the DC trip. How many students do you expect would be able to attend the DC lobbying trip with the proposed funding? And would they all be cabinet members or would there be senators?
Yeah. So in the upcoming year, the conversations we've had were to send 2 cabinet members and 2 senators, whether that be in the cabinet side, the president, the vice president, or whoever they decide to send. And then Senate-wise, the conversation we first had was the chair of our government relations committee, the speaker of the Senate, depending on whoever the speaker wants to send. So it could take potentially 4. And in this cost, when we looked at it, we combined all 3 of those. It may not cover all the costs, so the idea is because we never permanently put money in the budget for it, we decided to just fund half of it, and then if they want to send more folks, that they can pull out of the reserves in order to do that. But this is budgeted at most right now to send 4, 2 from cabinet, 2 from Senate, depending on whoever the president and the speaker want to send to it. So it isn't just something for the cabinet to do. It is very engaging at that point when the speaker is elected next year for the speaker and the president to decide who they're going to send on behalf of each branch.
Senator Tubak.
Sorry, going back to the technology budget for the office. So if I understand this correctly, the technology budget previously was kind of used as a cushion, or is it currently being used as
currently how we design it this way will do that. In the past, each of these different line items have been cushioned in order if we needed to have that cushion. Okay. We really looked at the number that is from line 4 to 18 are the exact numbers of what we've exactly expended over the past 3 years. The technology system fund is designed now to be the cushion if in event we need to use that.
Senator Webb.
Sorry, going back to the lobby efforts, do we have a general idea of a breakdown between the 3 different items of how much they each cost?
Yes, give me just 1 second. So when we looked at it, and again, all based off of projections and hopes that we didn't do this wrong, which, very possible. The KBOR travel expenses at the end of fiscal year 19, so last session, came to be about $1,800, give or take, not including cents. The cost for KBOR is, again, roughly budgeted for $1,200, and then the rest of the cost would be for the DC lobbying trip. And I can't tell you that number because I can't do math that fast. So I'm sorry.
Senator Turan.
Probably answered this already, like when we talked about the budget before, but going to scholarships, how were the $10,000 allocated for International Hardship Fund and Hardship Fund determined?
Yeah, so we, before we took over the International Hardship Fund this year, it was always requested at the $10,000. So our statute, interesting. We owned the statute, but we didn't own the process. We delegated that process to someone else. We now are taking that process back. So we in our statute said that we would not, or they could not disperse more than $1,000 per student. So when we developed the $10,000 number, we were looking at that it would serve about 10 students to do that. So that's where that $10,000 came from. We did the same for, or we plan on doing the same for the domestic hardship fund, asking for the same amount. More than likely, we're going to decrease what the maximum is, thinking that international students probably have a higher cost than our domestic students, and so traditionally that becomes a practice. So that's where the $10,000 number came from. Knowing that in previous years they've only asked for $10,000, so we just adopted the same number, and then plan on using the same number for the domestic hardship fund as well.
Senator Zacharias, we'll get back to you.
Okay, so I did the math, and that leaves $1,800 for DC. Would that only pay for 4 of our student members of the association, or would that also pay for the advisors who go along with them?
So we've built it in to do that, to do the second part. But again, when we looked at the $1,800, that's not the total cost of the trip. When Colleen and I talked about the number, theoretically, we could have put the entire cost of the trip, which, if you really think about it, last year, or this past year, it came to be about $5,000. We only put half or a little less than half, knowing that next year's group may say, we don't want to go to DC. So we didn't necessarily put the full amount in there so that we're not necessarily asking for money that they're not going to spend. But if they decide, yes, we're going to do it, and it doesn't cover the whole cost, then we built a mechanism for them to be able to take the rest of it from reserves. But that's why we didn't put the whole number in there, but it would theoretically cost or cover the cost of 4 plus 2. And again, all based off of what the next president and speaker would want to do.
Senator Turan.
Do you know if all $10,000 in previous years have been used for those 2 scholarships, international and domestic, or the international and hardship fund?
The international student scholarship?
Yeah.
So at that request, we've asked for $20,000. No, we've not always allocated that much, mainly because we don't necessarily have all the applications to do it. The international student scholarship also has limits of you can only award up to this much. So we've historically, since I've been here, we have not allocated all that money because we don't have all the application. We didn't have enough applications to award it. And I'm going to guess with the hardship fund, probably not either. This is our first year working with it, so we don't necessarily have the historical data behind that. Nancy, I don't know if you know specifics for that one.
So for the International Hardship Fund, the same as Gabe said with both of them, there's a lot of stipulations, and if students receive a certain amount of money from somewhere else, it actually disqualifies them from some of this money that we give out. The Hardship Fund, no. We were told when we took it over that they averaged about 2 per year. Already this year we have 5 that have submitted. So we're already above what they have done in the past. So we've seen an increase already, and I think part of that is, I don't want to say us taking it over, but we'll claim it. But so yeah, we've already seen double what they've seen in the entire year for the last several years. So 2 was the average that what they used to see.
So with that, there was always a lot of reserves, right? So in hopes of, as we looked at it last year with the International Student Scholarship, we recommended the pooling of those reserves because they've always had money left over, and then we reallocated that to other areas. So that could also be the potential this year that there'll be reserves that we can reallocate other areas or reallocate to other scholarships within the association as well. And that's, the tricky part. We'd love to give money to everyone, but people have to apply for it, and people have to come to us for it for either the International Student Scholarship or the Hardship Fund as well.
If I remember the number correctly, I think we're at 6,000 and some change left in that fund.
Okay, just one
Senator
last.
Turan.
So if there is leftover money, say we could apply it to the Dreamer Scholarship, for example, because we've seen that has been used in full in the past.
Yeah, so we plan on, when the academics committee comes back in, one of the conversations that I plan on having with them is to rewrite our scholarship statute to allow us to reallocate leftover money to other scholarships. Because as of right now, they would either take it like the student fees committee would take it all back, or it would just sit there. And if it sits there, that means it's collecting money. So the hope is that if we're able to write language into the scholarship statute that would allow us to reallocate it to other scholarships to cover, like, if we have 20 scholarships for the Dreamer, but we only really have 3,500 plus the portion SLB gives, then we could use that money to award additional scholarship without necessarily having to just let it sit there. So that's the hope that we plan on bringing. I haven't told you that, but we're going to work on that. That we plan on bringing back to be able to allow us to do that. Because, it's unfortunate that because we don't have that language, either we lose it or it just sits there and we can't give any more away because we're bound by what the statute tells us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Senator Majors.
Sorry, I might just be a little bit confused, but did you say that the Senate has not passed the hardship fund yet, and there will be some legislation coming up? Or was
The
that
one for
something
the domestic student hardship fund. So it's not on there now. Oh, yes, it is. The plain hardship fund one, the one's highlighted right now. We hope to bring legislation before student fees gavels in to approve that scholarship.
Senator Zacharias.
One more thing, sorry, I just forgot. The reason why we're putting it in the budget is because this is it. So we submit our student fees packet on Friday to the budget office, and so if the money was not asked for, we would have to wait an entire year to do this process again to ask for that money, which is why we're presenting it in the budget. If for some reason the Senate says, no, we're not approving that program, we're just going to take that number off before they gavel into the hearings. That was probably going to be your second question. Mind reader, told you.
Senator Zacharias.
Okay, so in the Word document talking about the student advocates' money stuff, there's a part that says communication, advertising, and printing, and that the Office of the Student Advocate functions like the association's office. Since the Office of the Student Advocate is now in the association, why are we having two different budgets for that?
We still treat it independently from the association. So even though it is housed in the association's office, the precedents in the past, the precedents in the past has been that its funding and its operation also has to exist separately, so that there's no political influence with us telling them this or that. So we separate all the money that the student advocate needs to function to operate their office, to pay them their programs, all separately from the general association budget, so that there is no influence to be able to hold their money against them if for some reason that became a reality. Not that I ever imagined that being a thing, but I think best practices just show that that's probably a little bit more easier for us to do.
Senator Day.
Under the association marketing budget of the budget proposal we were given, there is a mention that there could be a potential increase of the association marketing budgets. Is there a reason for that, and has that already been done? Or
did you say increase or decrease?
Decrease.
There is a potential. That has just been the number we've looked at. Not all the time have we always spent that marketing budget. It is a budget that covers marketing for everyone, not just the cabinet or cabinet initiative. So all the committees that do marketing or anything like that all comes from that one single budget. So there is a potential that if we wanted to cut that some we could. That's just the number we've historically always asked for. Knowing that some sessions they may want to market the crap out of everything, and so they're going to need money in order to cover those costs, because all those come at a cost. So there is potential that if we wanted to cut it, we could, but we didn't necessarily go into the cut because that's been the number that has existed for years and years, which is not a good reason, but that's the reality.
Senator Zacharias.
I'm pretty sure I just misheard you previously, but did you say that we pay for the student advocate's phone, the office phone,
so
or
their
the
office? No, their office phone. No. You want your phone paid for? Their office phone. So yeah, so all the phones in the office, we pay for those. And then the phone in, I should have said that. Oh God, that would have been something. The landline phone in the advocate's office, we also pay for. I got you, Josie. I'm gonna get your phone paid for.
Any other questions about the budget clarification? Senator Zacharias.
Also, in programming and operations, I believe, with the new Government Relations Committee being given $900 to start off, have we seen the need for that in the past? Or is that just a number we threw out there?
We came with that number mainly because the next session is an election year, we're currently in an election year, 2020. So being able to provide them funding to do election-related things, when we did voter registration, it cost us $1,100 to do that event. The first proposal we put in there was a $2,000 budget, knowing that it was an election year, but also being realistic with not asking for money that may not necessarily. So the reason why we looked at it that number is because it is a presidential election, I guess. I will also be the first to say you should always have money in that account or in that area because every year is an election year. But that's the theory behind why we put that number why we put that committee at that number, was to be able to cover some costs that they may want to do for the election that we're in 2020.
Senator Day.
Sorry to bother you again.
No, you're fine.
The association, the election commission, currently there's an increase of about $1,000 for the election commission under student salaries. I thought we reduced the number of election commissioners, so could someone explain that to me?
Yeah. So we did reduce the number of election commissioners. The statute also increased their stipend. For those three, we took it from 6 to 3, and so in order to justify some of the additional work, we increased their stipends in the election composition and compensation bill that passed in the fall.
Senator Tubak.
On the student advocate section, there's just a legal services program, and it has a recommendation by the treasurer. Could you just go over that with
Yeah.
me?
So our student advocate, Josie, has been looking at reestablishing would be the word? I'm going to go with establishing our legal services program. When we talked about this, one of the biggest things we talked about with this funding was it wasn't a program that was necessarily approved for yet by the Senate. So Colleen's recommendation that if the Senate approves a program this year, and I'm in the understanding, I'll turn it over to Josie if she wants to add any more, that we're going to be working on legislation for that program, that if it's approved this year, we will earmark some of our reserves to cover it for next year. The reason why we didn't go in for the $12,000 cost for this upcoming year was mainly because we wanted to make sure the program was going to work, that it was going to be sustainable, and that it met the needs of our students. And if we needed more, then we wanted to make sure that we had a year of data in order to help us come in for fiscal year 2022 to ask for that money to be permanent. Some of that money would also cover the cost of the program, potentially cover the cost of some personnel. So it would. Our belief was that we needed to get the Senate to authorize that funding in order to make it permanent for the 64th session at that point. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Josie, to that I missed.
The one thing I didn't touch on in my report, but it's on the report, is I put legal services under Ways and Means, possibly taking that into the Ways and Means Committee. I mean, that is what makes sense to me, but that would be determined by the Senate, of course, which committee wants to work with me or senators want to work with me on drafting legislation for the program. But it would basically be similar to like how they started the Shocker Support Locker, where you basically just write the legislation and then we roll with it from there. So that's my recommendation for the year.
And then it helps that we evaluate the program just like we did with the Shocker Support Locker to determine the actual costs that we need to operate, and then coming back the next year to ask for that money to be permanent.
Senator Majors.
Last question.
Yeah.
It might just be for a lack of knowledge, but you've referenced the reserves multiple times. Do you have a number for the reserves, or is it listed within?
It's not in here. It sits at $39,000 right now.
Senator Tubak, do you still have a question? Are there any other questions? Senator Khan.
Thank you. So, I know we have not approved of the advisor salary in any bill or resolution. So my question is, have SGA in the past before paid for their advisor salary?
So SGA has never necessarily had the advisor status that myself in my position brings, that Nancy kind of brings. SGA has always kind of existed, my understanding, and Nancy can chime in if there's something that I'm missing, has always existed necessarily without one. The fact that when student involvement took over the responsibility of advising SGA, my position was created in order to do that, which is where my position in my job description hosts that 40% of my responsibilities are earmarked for the student government. I'm going to be the first one to tell you it's not necessarily just 40%. I mean, we all know that. But I think when we looked at it, that just became the kind of idea of because this is new for us and it's a new model that we're looking at with the advising part, that doesn't make sense for the association to then cover the costs of what that position would be for. So that's the only reason why, and Nancy can chime in if there's anything different that I missed, but that was the basis behind it, that a position like this has never existed for the student government in the past. Does that answer your question? Maybe. Which is why, maybe to the approval part, why we put the number in there in asking the association to approve it. And if they don't approve it, then we're not going to put the money in there for that. So that's why we base it off of that way. I don't know if you want to add anything that I missed.
I think Gabe, and I like he explained it, is that when we were asked to advise student government before that had always been advised by, you could say, a senior administrator, like an associate vice president or a vice president, who had it tacked on to their job. So they had their job, and it was tacked on to their job. So when we were asked to advise, it was tacked on to my job. But when I asked about it, we asked about actually hiring someone who came in with the expertise and the background of advising a student government. And so we got a new position, essentially, to help advise you all. And that had never, in my time here, in almost 20 years, that had never happened. And so when we looked at this, it made sense then for student government to actually put money towards this position, because it's your advisor. None of my salary comes from student government, even though I advise you. It all is from other areas. But with this position specifically hired to work with you, that part of their salary would come from your budget. So you would be paying them because they're your advisor. And it's not a tack on like it's always been. And so the fact that they come in with specific experience in advising student governments, and that they're dedicated, they have an office in your space, like all of those things have never been done before. And so we wanted to look at, this is how we best support you, because I would say student government has also never had an advisor that, I mean, you think about it, a vice president is very busy. Gabe has he may not believe it, but he has more time possibly to dedicate, because he doesn't have all the other responsibilities that a vice president would have. And the same with me. I don't have tons and tons of time too, but that's why we have two of us too, because we've never had two advisors for student government either. It's always been one. So the fact that there's two of us that are here dedicated to you, but also one that specifically was hired, and that's never been done either. So that's why we look at this as a little bit differently than what's been done before. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps.
I think the other part to add on to that is, when you look at it's weird to compare us to a national trend, but when you look at a national trend of student government nationwide, and even in some cases internationally, this model is very rare, that you have dedicated personnel that's designed to advise a group of a student government in any capacity. The most practice you see is it's hey, you take this, instead of this job itself is designed for that. So I think that it makes us a little different, and really kind of trendsetters in that sense of things, because it's a rare commodity nationally and internationally with student governments as well. So that's why, and again, the request is, we would like you to consider this, but it isn't, you have to do this, because it's your money.
Are there any additional questions or points of clarification? Seeing none, thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
And we will move into debate on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak in debate? Senator Zacharias.
I move to recess for 15 minutes.
Any objections?
I object.
With the objection, we will have to take a vote. So all those in favor of taking a recess for 15 minutes, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Receiving 4 in favor, 15 against, and 3 abstentions. The motion fails. We will not recess. Moving back into the debate. Is there anyone wishing to debate at this time?
With a motion,
Senator Khan.
motion to take recess for 5 minutes. Or actually, wait, I rescind my motion. And second motion, I
Senator Khan.
motion to take a recess for 3 minutes.
Any objections? Seeing none, we will recess for 3 minutes. Please return to your seats by 8:47 p.m. Senators, find your seats. So I'll go ahead and call us back into order at 8:48 p.m. Since we took a recess, we will have to take attendance again. So as I call your name, please answer with either present or here. Senator Bradley. Senator Brown. Senator Castillo. Senator Cowden.
Present.
Senator Day,
Here.
Senator Ezel,
Here.
Senator Flores,
Here.
Senator Hopper, Senator James,
Here.
Senator Kata, Senator Kennedy,
Here.
Senator Khan,
Here.
Senator Lepetsky,
Here.
Senator Majors,
Present.
Senator Miller, Senator Morgan,
Here.
Senator Mounts,
Present.
Senator Nazir,
Present.
Senator Perkins,
Here.
Senator Ritchie,
Here.
Senator Sanchez,
Here.
Senator Spencer,
Here.
Senator Tehran,
Here.
Senator Tubak,
Here.
Senator Wang,
Here.
Senator Webb,
Present.
Senator Zacharias,
Here.
Senator Zaid.
Here.
Did I say it right this time?
Ziad.
Ziad. I'm going to get it one of these days. So we still have quorum, having 22 total in attendance, which means simple majority is 12, 2/3 of present is 15, and 2/3 majority is 22. Moving back into debate on the association's budget. Is there anyone wishing to debate on this item? Senator Webb.
With a motion to amend in the section of programming and operations, thank you. Line 27, to change the requested from 4,800 to 3,000.
Senator Tubak with the second. Not yet. So with that, the line item we're talking about is lobbying efforts and travel. That covers KBOR, higher ed, as well as the DC trip, which currently stands at 4,800, and the amendment is to bring that down to 3,000, you said? With that, we'll move into debate on the amendment itself. Is there anyone wishing to speak in debate? Senator Webb, it is your amendment. You have the right to speak first.
Yeah, so I've been talking to the treasurer the past couple of weeks about our budget and the university's budget with student fees coming up, and I got a sense of urgency to be somewhat conservative in our spending, and I think that if we're going to ask other people to be conservative with their requests and spending, I think that we should start with us as well. And I think that this is one place that I think we could afford a bit of a decrease. I know my freshman year I went to Higher Ed Day, and I thought it was valuable. And I think that there's also room for improvement there, so I think that we should start with our lobbying efforts to put a little bit more effort into Higher Ed Day before we make an entire separate budget for a DC trip. That's just my personal experience with Higher Ed Day. I don't know if anybody else has gone and had a different experience. But I also think that reimbursement or setting a budget for KBOR expenses is a valid request, so I would keep that in there as well.
With that, is there anyone else wishing to debate on this item or amendment? Seeing none, we shall vote on this change. All those in favor of reducing the number from 4,800 to 3,000, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Ridge out. Can you, since this is our only one, can you actually make can you make the edits on this so we know what was, we don't have an actual bill. So is this the actual file?
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and make the edits on there?
So, with that, the reduction has received 21 total in favor, 1 against, and 11 abstentions, and will carry. So the new price, not price, budget is $3,000. With that, moving back to the budget as a whole, is there anyone wishing to debate? Senator Khan.
So with this budget, I basically have one concern, and that's with the add-on of the advisor salary. I understand that that position was created for SGA specifically, but at the end of the day, it makes our budget look way bigger than it is. And yes, salaries are being counted in, but then are we taking away from other parts of SGA to fund that position? So that would be my only concern with this.
Is there anyone else wishing to debate on this budget or any particular line item? Senator Wang.
My personal opinion about this budget thing, I would come to advisor salary. I think every organization have a advisor, and for us, if it's a particular position that created just for us, and he dedicated most of his time to us, I think he deserved to get paid from us, not the other departments.
Senator Zacharias.
I also have some concerns about the increase of paying 40% of the student government advisor salary. I feel that since SGA is under the student involvement umbrella, that it shouldn't necessarily come from SGA and should just keep coming from SI. And that's just my thought on that.
Senator Mounts.
I think overall, there are things in this budget that do make me a little hesitant. However, we also have to remember that this is just a budget request, and that more than likely we're not going to get all that we want in all of these different areas. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Senator Webb.
Speaking to some previous senators' concerns, I think they're completely valid. However, I think that in the overall scheme of things, as in the amount of student fees that are requested in totality, I don't think it would change, because that the amount of money that we pay would just be shifted from SI to student government. So is that correct? Either Nancy or Gabe.
The money that in which we would be paying Gabe.
Yeah, so actually SI is going to be paying for 60% of Gabe's salary. So 40% would come from SGA, but then the remaining 60% would come from student involvement.
Right, so the overall amount that students would pay would not change. It would just be shifted to...
Yeah, because, his salary is not, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So I think in that sense, I think it's fair if he does 40% of his work for us to take on that expense.
Senator Izzo.
I'd just like to point out that in the past, having a consistent set of SGA advisors were a struggle. We've passed multiple bills specifically addressing compensation, whether it be for chairs or for cabinet members or for the election commission. And I think that if Gabe's giving us 40% of his time, then we should pay him 40% of his salary.
Senator Wang.
I think there's another thing I want to remind everyone. No matter it's student government or student involvement, they all under same umbrella. So technically, they all come from same pay. They come out from same budget, no matter what percentage is from where.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate? Senator Khan.
So, as I do understand everyone's concern, I think my only concern would be, as we know that we might not be getting this money, it's more on the side of if it's being shifted to our budget, and once it goes to student fees, we would all obviously put the salaries first, so that people get paid for the work they're doing. And then it comes down to, are we taking money? If we don't get the money we're asking for, will we cut budget or from the committees? Will we cut it from scholarships? That's my only concern.
Senator Tehran.
I would just like to mention that we should refrain from using like advisors' names, because we're not calling into question like their character and how they fulfill the position. We are just talking about the salary in general and whether it's 40-60 and where it's coming from. That's just out of respect. And I would like to remind everyone that the percentage on the first page did look high, but we were advised that it mostly came from, yes, salary, but also scholarship. And just to keep in mind as well that as an association in the fall, we created these new positions like different chairs for different things. And we have to allocate funds to back that. And that is all.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate at this time?
Point of information.
Senator Khan.
So it's a question for the advisors. So since SGA is like falling under the umbrella of SI, so are other such as Student Activities Council. They also get money from student fees. Are they also paying for their advisors?
So it's different because they don't have their own budgets like you all. You all have your separate budget that you request separately. Everyone else's budget that's under student involvement, everything's under there. So it's one budget where you all have your own separate budget that you request separately.
Senator Zacharias.
With a motion under student funding org in line 7, I move to cut it from 3,000 to 2,000.
Which tab?
Student
org, right?
Yeah, student funding org, line 7, summer funding fund.
Could you restate the motion?
I move to make that amount 2,000 in line 7 of student funding org.
Reducing the summer funding by 1,000 for a total asking for of 2,000. Is everybody clear? Seems pretty cut and dry. It is your motion. You have the right to debate first.
Point of information. Was there a second on the motion?
No.
So if there's no second, does it not happen at all?
That's a fact.
Second.
Senator Webb with the second. You have the right to debate first.
So we created this in the 61st session, and out of everything, we had no money allocated. We didn't give any summer funding away. So I think that we should start at 2,000 just because we have no prior experience of giving any summer funding away. So let's say if there were people who asked and we end up spending 5, we should just pull that out of reserves and not over ask, because we don't have any previous experience in this summer funding of us ever allocating summer funding.
Senator Mounts.
I served on the Summer Budget and Finance Committee, or whatever it was called, that dealt with this summer funding, and we did allocate like I don't remember how much it was, but we did allocate a decent amount of the money to, at least if I remember correctly, at least 4 students, if not maybe 6. I don't know. I don't know if one of the advisors can back that up or not, but yeah, we definitely did spend that money.
Senator Webb.
Is there anybody that has that number that we allocated?
I'm looking it up now.
Senator Zacharias.
I'm sorry, I was also on that, and I remember us denying the people, like the one applicant group, unless I'm mistaken. I'm sorry.
Senator Mounts.
So we denied 2 people because there were 3 people going to the same conference, so we figured because 2 of them weren't presenting at the conference, we shouldn't fund them. However, we did approve like 4 other people because we had 3 meetings throughout the summer, and only one of them did we deny any groups money.
So last year we awarded, sorry, hold up, one again.
While we're waiting on those numbers, is there anyone else wishing to debate on the motion at hand, which is reducing summer funding?
Okay, I found it. So last year we allocated 1,700, roughly estimated above, to 3 individuals, and then we allocated to student organizations. We had 2 requests last year, and those came in at one at 220, one at 100. So you allocated roughly $2,300-400 in the summer funding this past fiscal year.
Senator Sanchez, do you still have a debate?
Yeah, I would just say that looking at all of our budgets, and especially with this line and this motion, it's really important to note that the more funding opportunities for students, the better, and especially in times during the summer where students actually utilize their time a lot more. I know that's across the board what I've heard from my constituents and myself personally. When you have more time because you're not taking as many classes, or if you are, you're taking less, and so just having that opportunity gives students the opportunity to look for more conferences and more things that they can travel to.
Senator Flores.
Yeah, I think keeping it at 3,000 just makes the most sense, given that the information that we were just given, that 2,300 to 2,400 was spent over the summer last time, and there were 2 denials. It makes sense that if the same amount of people apply for funding, that we would need 3,000, and it doesn't make sense to me why we would decrease it to 2,000.
Senator Zacharias.
Since I made this motion on a very mistaken thought, I'm going to rescind it. So.
That is your right as the individual that made it. For the motion has been rescinded, and we will move back to the main item, which is the budget as a whole. Senator Majors.
Yeah, with a motion to amend under student government, actually under programming and operations, on line 21, the Inspire program, I'd like to change it to 2,500 to remain the same as the last fiscal year.
Senator Day with the second. It is your motion. You have the right to debate first.
Yeah, so though I know we are being fiscally responsible or attempting to be within our budget, I think since we are increasing salaries, increasing budgets for different committees, doing things that better serve ourselves, I think that it's kind of counterintuitive to not continue with programs that have been beneficial. And even though there has been a 5-year trend in which the median was found through the numbers, there was a median found that they should reduce $1,100. I think it better serves the people who would benefit from Inspire to at least have the money allocated, and if the money is not spent, then that can be rolled over, I assume, or placed into our reserves. But I think we'd be better serving those who benefit from Inspire by at least remaining consistent with the previous year.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this amendment? Senator Mounts.
As a point of information to the advisors, how much did SGA use of the Inspire program's funds over the last 2 years? Like, what was the full expenditure?
Last year we've spent under really $1,000 the last couple years, because the Inspire program has changed very much over the last few years. Instead of going out and recruiting, we've done more of a dinner more of a dinner. So we have not spent near the $2,500.
Senator Majors.
Point of information to the chair of the Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion Committee. I was just wondering, didn't you say that there was some attempts to do things with the Inspire program since it's been kind of lackluster in the last few years?
So yes, however, so last year we didn't. The reason why I believe that number is under 1,000, especially for last year, was because we didn't have the Inspire dinner. But we really didn't do anything with DTF didn't really do anything with the Inspire program. So I think that is something to keep in mind. However, does that make sense? I guess. Okay, does that answer your question?
Senator James.
Yeah, I know in committee we talked about some different ideas, and with this extra lot of money, we can definitely get the ideas done. So I'm in favor of the motion, not just as a person in the committee, but as a person who wants to see things get done the right way.
Senator Flores.
I would like to echo previous senators' statements that we should amend the budget for the Inspire program, just because in committee we've talked about what our different options are, and if the budget decreases, that we'll have to pick and choose what we can accomplish and reach less people through the program. And I think that we have plans to get things accomplished now and then expand upon that next session. So I think it's going to be necessary to keep it at 2,500.
Senator Day.
I will be voting in favor of this amendment. I'm not convinced that reducing the amount of money simply will make the program better. I don't think that's going to accomplish a whole lot. I think it's much more likely, if not completely likely, that the program will improve with a reasonable amount of money and a better idea of what it's for and who it's for.
Senator Tehran, do you still have a debate?
I like to play the devil's advocate and just plead that within the last 5 years, nothing has been done with it, and some of the people on this committee have been returning senators and had the opportunity to do something more this year. And I just want to reiterate that previous senators mentioned that we should be, penny pinching a little bit here, and just note that the numbers do not lie, that we have been using significantly less. So I will not be voting in favor of returning it back to 2,500. I think unless there is actual initiative towards this, or if next year they use that total amount, then I think that's definitely to be put in the next budget. But as seen in trend for the last 5 years, significantly less.
Senator Ritchie.
I'm going to have to echo what a previous senator has said. I can't justify voting in favor of something that increases the funding based on wishes. The trend is what budget gets set on. And the idea that increasing it such that you can roll over the funds to another department or whatever, to me is not what that is for. you budget specifically for a reason. So budgeting more under the assumption that you can just roll it over, to me, is not justifiable.
Senator Majors.
So I think now that I've heard something from more senators, it sounds like those who are specifically involved in the committee, which would be spearheading this program and be working to revamp it, and they've echoed my sentiment in that we should have this $2,500. And I believe that though people are returning, people have seen budgets in the past, people have seen trends. It's been made a point that this committee would like to work on this program. They would like to see this program be as sufficient as it was whenever it was originally introduced. And I think that the best way to do so is at least have the resources allocated within our budget to do that. That's, I think, a good step for us to take collectively outside and giving the committee the ability to work on that is just something I wanted to mention, yeah.
Senator Webb.
Yeah, I would like to echo some previous senators. I will not be voting in favor of this amendment. I think that increasing a budget doesn't necessarily make an event better. I think having some solid plans, and maybe if we wanted to return the event to what it initially was before, possibly having conversations with the person that initiated it would be a good place to start. But as far as I have heard, I haven't heard of any of those conversations taking place, but that might just be me, so I will not be voting in favor of this.
Senator Izzo.
I would just like to say that lowering a budget because someone may or may not be seeing initiative really isn't a justification, and we should not budget for hypothetical initiative being taken. And I truly believe that if people say, I'm going to be here next session and I'm really passionate about making sure that we really maximize the amount of money that we're given, then we should give them that opportunity.
Senator James.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about initiative, and I understand that a lot of people aren't seeing stuff. But when our minutes come out from our committee meeting tonight, you'll see that we had a very long discussion about what we want Inspire to be, what we are trying to do with the little money that we have, and if we get this money that the amendment was trying to make, then it'll fulfill our needs, and we'll be able to do everything that we want to do that we talked about tonight. So there is initiative being taken. I apologize that you don't see it, but like I said, when our minutes come out, you'll see that we talked about what we want to do with Inspire, whether we go out to reach out to students or we bring them here to have a dinner, anything like that. This money will be helpful, and I urge you to vote in favor for the amendment.
Senator Flores.
So, as a member of DEI, I just want to sort of clarify why we would need to keep the budget the same, because I know that it's really easy to hear people saying that we need the budget, but not understand why. But specifically in committee, earlier today we were talking about what we wanted Inspire to be and the future of it, and we talked about how we need to expand upon it in the future, specifically next session, which is where we're going to be needing this budget. We were talking about how we want to expand and go to these different schools, because it makes it a lot easier and more accessible to more people than trying to get people to come here. And we were also discussing going to schools outside of USD 259 that are in Wichita suburbs that always get overlooked by programs. They are never included. And there's underserved students that are very close to us that never get the recognition and the opportunities that USD 259 students do. And so I think it's important to make sure that right now we might not be able to get everything accomplished in this session that we would like to, but we've made plans to have something substantial now and then expand and build upon that next session. And I don't think that previous senators, because there are several senators who are new to DEI who haven't had the opportunity to improve things upon last year because we are new. I don't think we should be held accountable for last year and their inability to make the Inspire program happen the way it should have.
Senators, just to give you a heads up, we're almost out of time for this meeting, so please keep your debates short because we can't move on to extend the meeting until this item is finished. So with that, I saw Senator Nazir next.
On the topic of initiative, I think since a lot of new senators and returning senators are a part of Student Ambassador Society, who works very closely with admissions, we're in the admissions building, that could help a lot with the Inspire program, especially when talking about reaching out to students, especially students who aren't in USD 259. Like I myself was just thinking about it with other senators, how closely we could work with admissions, just because we have people who are in SAS and SGA, and those could tie very closely together and could honestly justify increasing that budget.
Senator Majors.
Yeah, so the final sentiment that I'll echo is just that casting your vote today, I want you to think about the fact that we're increasing the budget currently by 19%. A lot of that going towards things like our own salaries, our own committees. A lot of the money that is being increased is going towards things that are going to benefit us. So even though in the past, not all of the money has been spent in the past 2 years, like they mentioned, but they said there were fluctuations 5 years ago, and that's probably because there was more initiative taken when it comes to the Inspire program. We have a committee right now that is obviously, at least I'm hopeful, that they're taking the initiative to go out and actually implement this program like hasn't been done in the previous 2 years, seemingly. So I believe in penny pinching, but if we're going to increase anything or at least keep something consistent and stagnant, I would assume that that would be things that would benefit those who are less fortunate. And I would just like you to know that your vote is going to go towards the Inspire program. So whether or not you would like to increase that specifically, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's it.
Senator Tehran.
I just want to briefly just mention that it's not the initiative that's being called into question, it's the 5-year trend seen by the numbers. And if there are already programs reaching out to high schools in place, I don't see a reason for us to revamp this. And then when we could just suggest to those organizations already working toward this common goal to extend their whatever to reach these high schools that aren't being represented.
Seeing as we only have 9 minutes left, I would entertain a motion to close debate. Senator Day.
Motion to close debate.
Seconded by Senator Morgan. With no objections, we will close debate. Senator Izzo, was that an objection?
No. Sorry. Never mind.
Seeing none, debate is now closed. We'll move in. I'm now going to entertain a motion for somebody to extend the meeting so we can finish off. Senator Mounts.
I move to change the time of adjournment to 9:45.
If there are no objections, the new time to adjourn will be 9:45. Seeing none, it is adopted as such. Back to the item at hand, which was the motion to return or restore funding to the Inspire Dinner for a total of $2,500. Is that correct? Debate has closed, so we're moving into the voting period. All those in favor of restoring the funding to this item, please raise your hand and hold them high. Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. Receiving a total of 16 in favor, 6 against, and 11 abstentions, it passes the simple majority requirement to adjust. So we will now restore or modify, amend to 2,500. That was the difference between these years. With that, moving back into debate on the main item, which is the budget itself. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate the budget as a whole or a particular line item? Senator Zacharias.
I'm going to speak in favor of the budget. I know a lot of people said that we're increasing salaries. We're actually decreasing our student salaries by $2,000, and the only increase is adding our advisor's salary onto that. And I think it's very thought out. And besides some few quirks, I think it's really good, and that we should go ahead and send this on to the next step in the process.
Senator Mounts.
I would also like to express the same sentiment, and I will also move to call the previous question.
What was that last bit? I didn't catch it.
I move to call the previous question.
For those that remember the last time we did this, it's to close debate. Senator Turan. I got you. So you have motioned. Doesn't require a second. It does? Senator Wang with the second. Long night. Not debatable. But all those in favor of closing debate on the budget, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Receiving a total of 19 in favor, requiring 15. So it does pass. Debate is now closed on the budget itself, and we will move into the voting. This is whether to adopt and put forward to the student fees this budget that we have prepared or not. We will take another look at it. All those in favor of putting this forward to student fees, please raise your hand and hold them high. Bless you. All opposed, same sign. Receiving a total of 21 in favor, 0 against, and 10 abstentions. That number seems wrong. Hold on. Yeah, so that's 11. 12 abstentions. Motion carries. So we now, as the Senate, put forward this budget to student fees.
Michael, can I interject for a second?
Yes.
So, two things before we move on from the budget. First, this is our first year doing this process. So Colleen is going to be asking you all for feedback on how the process went. For those of you who are new, I'm sorry, you didn't see it in the fall. Sorry, now you can hear me. So please, if you have feedback about the process of how it went, please provide her that feedback so we can leave that recommendation for the next treasurer. And two, to kind of understand next steps from here, we'll be submitting our student fees package request on Friday. The student fees committee will have their chance to deliberate. It will come back to the Senate for a decision to approve the overall budget. And in the next session, we'll be able to take that budget, and then tear it up if they want to and do whatever the next session wants to do. So for those who return to the Senate next year, you'll see the budget again for final approval for the next fiscal year. So do keep that in mind, that the next session we'll be able to move money around if they want to do that, and go through this whole process all over again. Yay, budgets.
Thank you, Gabe. Moving out of unfinished business into section 10, new business, item A, funding bill 62-019, organizational funding bill. Is there a representative from the budget and
Point of
finance?
information,
Senator James.
it could just be me, but this is not the. Yeah, that's not what says funding bill 62.
I sent you the wrong bill. This is the correct bill. But yeah. Sorry, I didn't get you that notification earlier, but I noticed that right when I was setting up, as I was making sure all of them were on file. I sent out the wrong one. My apologies. With that, budget and finance. Has the treasurer appointed somebody to speak on her behalf? Would you like to speak on this bill a bit, so we understand what we're voting on?
All right, so basically, this is organizational funding for the Spectrum Group to go, I'm trying to remember what all, Mumble Tech, thank you. Yeah, so something like that, and yeah, they requested $1,500. We cut down to $1,200 because there were 4 people or 3 people, and for individual funding, we normally only allocate $400 in practice to individuals. So that's just how we did it. You can pick into that if you want, but yeah, I guess that's my spiel.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about any particulars on this item? Senator Wang, is that a hand?
So since Colleen's not here, can Senator Mounts tell us a little bit about what this thing is? Like
Since
the
he's
thing
not-
they're going to.
What are you talking about? The bill or the conference or whatever they're going to?
Because we haven't seen this before.
Do you know? If you would.
Alrighty, so MumbleTech stands for the Midwest Bi, Lesbian, Gay, Transgender, Asexual College Conference. So essentially what that is, it travels each year. We had the luck, specifically ODI had the luck of hosting it last year here in Wichita, Kansas. But essentially it's a college conference for LGBTQIA plus students who are all around the Midwest. And so there are multiple different presentations. I attended one last year specifically over pronouns and pronoun usage, hosted by, I believe, might have been by former Senator Fugit, if I remember correctly. So it's important not only for people to bring like research to and give presentations on, but it also is just like it's a huge community of LGBT college students. I think we had almost 800 people attend last year. So it is a very important conference, and so there's also like a lot of keynote speakers who come and present as well. We had like Niall DeMarco, if you remember him coming just a few months ago. He was here last February, so I would definitely recommend giving this money because it is an important conference, specifically for LGBT students here.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
Senator Zacharias.
Is this going to be first read, or is this our voting time?
So the treasurer has deemed this one as timely, if I remember correctly.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we will be voting on it tonight. Senator Khan.
So my question is, why are we cutting on their funding?
Actually, me and Richard had this discussion earlier about the individual funding. Basically, it's just based on the budgeting principle that we want to save enough money so that's fair to all applicants who apply over the year to a certain extent. And you may not agree with the principle. I kind of have my own issues with it, but I mean, it's what we voted on, and I'd rather vote in favor of this than just rejecting the whole bill. So.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Senator D. We will now move into debate on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak in debate at this time? Senator Mounts.
So this is, again, it's a very important conference for us to attend. I know the people who are going very well. I did not know they were requesting funding, however. But it is something that, it's an expensive trip. I mean, registration, I think, was $65. And I was lucky enough to, be able to stay here and kind of go to and work at the conference and not have to pay for anything. But it's expensive. Hotels, I know, are expensive. They were ranging per night between $119 or $130 when I last looked at it. So passing this bill and giving money to this group, I think, is something that's super important that this body can do.
Yes. If you wanted to. Senator Sanchez.
Pretty much restating what Senator Mounts has said. I had the privilege also to volunteer at the conference, and I saw what a big impact it makes on the students that go. And so with that, also a motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Any objections? Has been objected. So we would have to, you can't adopt by unanimous consent, so we have to go through the voting process. So we won't be skipping debate to do that. Does that make sense? Senator Sanchez. Wow. My apologies. Senator Zachary.
Okay, sorry. Since I didn't get to see this before, I'm trying to see the initial amount. So on line 18, I motion to amend 308 to 400.
For all those confused, changing this line from 308 to 400 would fully fund the request for Spectrum. Yeah, Spectrum LGBTQ and all allies with their request of 400, and they were only recommended 308. So that would just be moving it back to the fully requested 400.
Point of
no.
Does that make sense?
Can we adjust that even after? I don't think we can adjust that when it's went through the budget and finance. If I'm correct, this is point of information.
I'm pretty sure you can.
Oh, you
Gabe?
can?
We can, right?
Okay.
Yeah, these are just recommendations. So the Senate has final authority on the numbers.
Yeah. So with that clear, everybody understands what we're changing.
Point of information. I'm not arguing with the amendment. I'm just saying that.
Point of information is asking for information, not giving information.
Okay. Actually, I do have some information. Basically, the total amount, as I understood it, was $600, not $400. I'm not sure if I made that clear enough, but that's only part of the amount, as I understand it. So, if you go to line 19 through 21, there's more. And actually below that, okay. There's even more below that. Why? Yeah. On line 24, it says a recommended allocation $1,200.
So what was your question?
I don't have a question. I was just pointing that out.
That's all right. Senator Ritchie.
Point of personal privilege. Could you mind enlarging it? I can't read it.
Please tell us when it's large enough. Does anyone else have an issue with the size? With that, moving back into debate. I gave you the first to talk about it, right? On adjusting to 400. Does anybody wish to debate on that item? Senator James.
Wait, does Crystal get to go first? I mean, Senator Zacharias get to go first, since it was their move. No? All right, good. So I just think that keeping parity with individual funding, I think Budget and Finance did a good job of cutting it because they want to keep that parity, so I'm going to not vote for this amendment.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in debate at this time? Seeing none, we'll vote on this amendment. All those in favor of increasing from $308 to $400 on this line item, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Receiving a total of 4 in favor, 16 against, and 13 abstentions, it fails to meet the simple majority requirement of 12 and will not go into effect. Moving back to the funding bill as a whole, is there anyone wishing to debate at this time? Senator Zacharias.
I motion to amend line 24 to $900 instead of $696.
Is that a second?
A point of information, actually.
Senator Tuba.
So what is the total recommended or not recommended allocation, the total requested allocation of this entire bill by the organization? Because it's not 900. Did Senator Day say that it was 1,500 at one point?
Yes.
1,500. So is that the total amount that they're requesting with this bill?
If I'm remembering correctly, yes.
Okay. So we should do that.
You have 5 minutes left on your time.
With the motion to extend the meeting to 10 o'clock.
If there are no objections, we will extend to 10. With that, my math in my head says everything checks out for the requested ones, adding up to be roughly 15. It's a little over, actually.
Sorry, point of order. I object, and I would like to motion to call the previous question in debate on the amendment. So, like, to vote on the amendment.
Mm-hmm. So, closing. Technically, we're not in debate on the motion yet. So, as soon as we move into debate, you can actually make that. But right now, we were clarifying a point of information and then making sure that we had noted the amendment correctly. Have we done so? 900, right? Does require a second. Seeing no second, we'll move on. With that, back onto the main item, which is the funding bill in its entirety. Please unstrike that. Yes, there was no second. We moved on. So with that, does anybody wish to debate on the bill in its entirety? Senator Flores, I saw you first.
I move to extend the time of adjournment to 10 p.m.
We already did that.
It was objected, though. Vanessa objected it.
That was after we had passed. It was something else, if I'm remembering correctly. Senator Mounts.
I move to call the previous question.
This would close debate on the bill itself. It is not debatable, but does require a second. Senator Morgan with the second. That being said, all those in favor of closing debate on this item, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. So, motion to close debate has received 21 total in favor, 0 against, and 12 abstentions, which beats out its 16 requirement. And we will close debate on this item and move into the voting period. All those in favor of approving the funding bill as requested, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. That's incorrect. Receiving 22 total in favor, 0 against, and 11 abstentions. FB-62-019 has passed its simple majority requirement. That does clear our agenda for today, so we will move into Section 11, Remarks and Announcements. Senator Nazir.
Hey guys, so I just had a few things to mention from this meeting. Trying to just kind of going back to the whole budget discussion, specifically over the Inspire program. I feel like talking about initiative in our plans for that program is kind of imperative because that's kind of why we're deciding that budget. I feel like that goes hand in hand, and discussing that is really important. And to add on to that, I just want to add my personal reasons, just because I feel like adding personal reasons during that discussion was kind of irrelevant. But just for your knowledge, as a junior in high school, I went to an Inspire dinner, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to come to Wichita State, and also why I wanted to join SGA for sure 2 years in advance from coming to college. So that program is really important, and I know that kind of doesn't relate to its whole funding, but you know, it's one of those important programs that we need. So yeah.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in remarks and announcements? Senator Ritchie.
Hi, I'm here to put fine arts events on your agenda. So open your calendars and please turn to February and mark down February 27th. It's going to be the Concerto Aria Honors Concert. We have students on campus who competed in a competition to perform solo works with the WSU Symphony Orchestra, and they're performing on that date at 7:30. So if you can be out there to support your own peers, please be there. And spread the word.
Is there anyone else with a remark or announcement? Senator Nazir.
This is just a quick thought that I had at the beginning of the meeting, but I might be wrong about this. But like usually in your syllabi at the beginning of the year, like it has those references to like counseling, testing, all those resources for you. And I was thinking is it possible, this is just a question for anybody, but is it possible to throw in the information about the student advocate? Because I know a lot of people don't know about it, especially first years like me. So that was just a thought that I was having earlier.
Just really quick, it actually is in there. Yeah, it's whether they put it in, but it's one of the required ones that they're asked to put in. So yes, but good point, absolutely.
It's also one that's typically skipped over in, like, here's a bunch of jargon that you need to read. Any questions? At least in my experience, I've seen some do that. Senator Mounts.
I move to adjourn.
If there are no objections, we will adjourn with a silent roll call at 9:48 p.m. Senators, I do have a bunch of missing information on my tracker. If you could come up here so I can get that filled in before you leave.
Are there specific senators for you that you need?
If everybody.